Hello and welcome to the stream, everybody. My name is Josh Herman. Thank you for joining Gnomon's Art Jam today. We have another super awesome guest today and a special art jam. We've been doing a lot of these this year with adding some guests and getting to learn a little bit from what they're doing. Today, I'm selfishly very excited because I'm going to get to learn a lot today from Paul Gaboury, who is our special guest. I'm going to add him to the stream. Paul, hello. How are you doing?
Hey, if you're not hyped up after that video, I don't know what's going on. That's what I'm saying.
There we go.
Blood's a pumping, water. That's right. Let's do this.
It should be. That's right. I'm excited to have you on today. We talked a lot before the stream about what we're going to do, but I have done a lot of hard surface stuff before, but not as much in ZBrush, and you are definitely one of the top, if not the top person to help me learn how to do some of this because you've done a lot of it. And so I'm super excited to learn how to do some hard surface stuff today with Zmodeler and learn a bit about the process. But I was hoping you could actually show a little bit about your work. So I'm going to show some of your screen, maybe introduce yourself a little bit in case people here don't know who you are, and kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of what you're going to show.
You got it. No worries. Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Josh, and the Herman team. This is going to be a fun ride. First thing you all should do is just buckle up. I'm loud and obnoxious, and we're going to have a good time. Darn it. That's the way we're going to go with this. So as Josh said, my name's Paul Gaboury. I'm a lead product development manager for Pixologic. So I've been involved in the development of ZBrush going on, holy moly, 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Going on 13 years. So actually, it'll be 13 years April 1st. So there you go. So, so I've been with the company since version. We'll use version numbers because that's easier to remember. Who does years? So since 3.1, I've been involved with all development up through from that to this point where we're at today. So me and a couple other people on the team, I will get the version. I'll mess with it. I'll help come up with the features, and then I go in and out of a lot of places helping people either integrate ZBrush or help them if they're already got ZBrush. How much more could they do with ZBrush? I.e., a little bit what you're doing here with the art jams, right? There's just so much in it and a program, right? And there's only so much time in the day. So I've obviously have spent a lot of time in ZBrush, just a smidge.
Yeah.
And, I love it. It was the tool that I've been using it now for, oh my goodness, here we go. I think 16 years now.
Wow.
I want to say maybe almost. I'm trying to remember the year that I even bought it because I taught it to myself. So I've discovered it at SIGGRAPH and ironically bought it, then walked over to Gnomon's booth at the time when we did booths and SIGGRAPH, and then got some DVDs, and that was it. I just watched the DVDs and then I just tried to recreate. And then I was on ZBrush Central a ton, seeing what people were doing, and then trying to copy it, and that really helped me understand and wrap my head around the application. I do that a lot for applications because what I do too. One thing I want to highlight here as well is ZBrush is used in so many ways. It's crazy the conversations I've had in the 13 years.
Yeah,
we're not just film and game. Right. So we're in toys, collectibles, we're in aviation, we're in automotive, we're in jewelry. The change in your pocket is made in ZBrush. And the US Mint, the Canadian Mint, many other mints around the world actually use ZBrush to also create coins and collect.
I feel like I've heard shoes as well, like product designs.
Yeah, we've done. Well, there's been a lot of product design and a lot of companies, Oakley, Nike, companies like that also will experiment and things like inside of ZBrush. It's all over the place. I've had conversations with NASA. I've had conversations with state police. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's all over the place. And also that's really what our main goal for ZBrush too is. It's an art tool in essence.
Right.
And hearing now how many industries use us, we're always thinking about developing stuff for an artistic mindset. And every artist works different. Just like Josh just started with this, you worked a lot in other programs, maybe do some hard surface and a little bit in ZBrush. And you're trying to learn a little more about hard surface in ZBrush. Myself personally, I'm at the point where I can pretty much do anything I want in ZBrush, whether it be hard surface, organic, whatever it might be. So it's a lot of fun messing around. And it gave me that artistic feel again on the computer. So I loved it. And I was hooked the minute I got it. So that's enough about me, I guess, right? So
show me some of the stuff you've got. Let's see, you got some tools loaded up. So
yeah.
What are some of the things you've made using hard surface stuff?
Yeah, so I just want to show some examples because I'm going to be touching on all this stuff today in this 3-hour journey that we're going on already. Yeah. I didn't know if you all knew it was 3 hours, but it is. Okay. So this is just actually when we were making live booleans. This was the very first thing I did with live booleans. Okay, so I'm going to turn on my live boolean. For those that don't know what it is, you're going to find out today because I'm going to 100% use it. It's one of my most favorite features in ZBrush. Right, so I want to do a little tip of the hat to District 9. So this is like my District 9 gun. I think it was because I was also just at Weta Workshop too, only like a couple years before this. So, you know, being in that atmosphere, I was like, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. So I want to do a little tip of the hat to them. So this is in essence, this is kind of what I'll do while we're developing something. I will experiment and see, okay, is it possible now to do this with this feature? And then that's my goal, right? So then I moved on to other things, like here's another weapon that I moved on to. So this is the Mauser that the Rocketeer will do. So, you know, doing stuff like the logo, like that's really not that difficult to do. And I think a big thing I'll probably show today Zmodeler wise, if you look at this piece, I'm going from a cylindrical to a squared shape here. Right. And it was Zmodeler that made this possible. So if I look at just this, see it's very low polygon. Right, and you can see there's a transition right here happening from the cylinder to the square. Zmodeler did that for me. It's 2 clicks, and then
and just kind of my perspective as I'm looking at this, like I'm seeing a lot of things that are like that can be a challenging shape to make in traditional poly modeling, especially when you start cutting out shapes on the top of that.
Yeah, and then start doing all this. And I think that's the key to when you're going to start getting into ZBrush for hard surface. And then number one is what it's my little buzzwords for me is hard surface to me is a little bit like playing chess.
Okay.
Right? So in essence, if no one's ever played chess before, you're never making one move for that move. You're always making that move for multiple moves in front, right? You're trying to set up so in essence, for me, that's what hard surface is. There's a lot of times where you're making a decision on something, but you know down the pipeline you're going to do something else with what you're making. And that's kind of what I want to hit home with today. And that's how I work with my hard surface in ZBrush. In essence, I look at something and I start breaking it down and simplifying as much as I can. And we're going to get into this. And I start looking, okay, that array mesh, okay, Zmodeler, okay, Dynamesh. I start plucking features and I know in my pipeline then where I'm going to use certain features at certain points.
Right.
So that's why I say it's like playing chess, right? So because you got to be looking ahead of the game a little bit when you do hard surface. Like, you know, you got to be looking at just taking this piece as an example. These little screw pieces. This is one of my all-time favorite tricks. How I did this, which I'm going to show because it's an awesome trick. So like knowing this, I don't wrap my head around, you know, the days of when I was, you know, I used My Essence version 2, right? Where I got to worry about the topology. How am I going to do all that? I don't worry about that kind of thing inside of ZBrush. Right, because we have millions of polygons at our disposal if we want. So these are just some examples of showing you guys like some pieces that I've made inside of ZBrush using hard surface. Oh, here's a fun little. Everyone probably recognizes this little guy. Right, so Zmodeler pretty much everywhere. This is nano. So really simple things. In essence, what I'm trying to also get across here is just I'm using kind of multiple features here, but I'm picking and choosing when to use them and when's the right time to use them, right? So here's these. I was doing like the Gundam. This is where he started. I wanted to do like a bust of him first, and then, you know, get all the guts underneath and all that. Like I go to these extremes. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I go like it's not necessary. Like if I'm never going to show this.
Like, why are you making it? But you want to do it because you know it's there.
I can't help it. It's really a problem I have, and I need to see somebody about it. Okay? I'm just saying. Here's
we can talk through that problem today if you want. Yeah.
Can you be? Yeah, you'll be my therapist. Paul, stop. Move on. Let it go. So this is the Rocketeer, and again, everything I'm showing you guys is 100% ZBrush.
Right.
If I left the ZBrush for another application, I'll let you know. But so far, everything I've pulled up is 100% ZBrush.
Right.
And these are over years. Like, so there's certain features that were not available when I made some of this stuff as well. So I just love the Rocketeer. I think he's one of the coolest characters.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love him. He's awesome. And then I got a printout of him, but
Oh, cool.
I don't have it. It's in my other office. So what I want to get a little bit into, here's my gun diagram, right? So this is me. I'm going, you know what? Again, I just want to start making the whole thing kind of world atmosphere, right? So this is me wanting to do more with him.
I think there's a lot. That is a lot more.
Yeah.
What you just
there's a close-up of the chin.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
There you go. Oh, I keep pressing the
There's
button.
the chin again. But
there you go.
Yeah.
Just wanted to let you guys know there's a chin on him.
Yeah.
Right? So here's all the pieces, right, that I've started. And I really need to finish him. This isn't even the one that I'm further along. But you guys can see, again, like all of this, the ISWP is all Zmodeler. That's all Zmodeler. Almost all of this is Zmodeler. But this is how I like to start, and we're going to get into this. Because you notice the legs aren't really like amazing or anything.
Sure.
They're very, very just geometrical, rudimentary shapes. And that's how I like to start. Because I think the biggest thing also for hard surface, when you're going to get into that as well, that I have found, I'm sure you've come across this yourself. It's not like organic in the sense that, oh no, my nose isn't big enough. I need to take the move brush, make it, or the ears. Hey, they're a little low. Let me just move them up a little bit. Like organically, that's easier to do. But if like you take that same scenario on a hard surface, think about what if the ear is a cylinder and then it's got squares and it's got other little cylinders. You can't just stretch that.
You squash it. It gets like destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets distorted. You're squashing and stretching. So that's another reason why I like to say we're playing chess. And then my other buzzword for tonight is a non-destructive. That's why I want to say non-destructive. So I'm going to show you guys kind of how I go about. Oh, this is my current project that I'm messing around with.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to show you guys my process here on how I'm getting to these even finished pieces. Here, this is some just fan stuff I know you guys would love. Anybody know? And for 1 million points in the stream, which means absolutely nothing. What's this from? I'm sure everybody probably recognizes this possibly.
I'll let you know when the answers start coming in.
Oh, yeah. Here, I'll show another one. Maybe this one will also give it away a little bit, too.
Ooh.
We'll see who the true fans are. Fans. So I made this for Hasbro. I do a lot of toy work. I love the toy world. You know, I have 2 3D printers myself right here.
Oh, cool.
So I love the ability now that we can do this, that we can make something digitally and then hold it in our hands. Like, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the 3D printing is so amazing because it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, like this is a digital thing that I'm now holding in my hand. Got a lot of Mando answers, by the way. But one person said, you know, Nerf for nothing. So
there you go.
Nerf guns.
They were right. It's Mandalorian, right? So these are the guns. So they made an amazing replica of the Razor Crest, right? And all the weapons and everything. So these are the weapons. I did 2 of the weapons that are going in that.
Very cool.
Yeah, the piece they made is amazing. It's incredible. Okay, so I think that's enough of me just chitter chattering and showing, right? We want to get into.
Hey, there's a lot of cool stuff here. What I kind of wanted to do, because I think I see a lot of people in the chat probably in a very similar mindset as I am, which is I can sculpt. I feel comfortable in ZBrush as an organic modeler, and maybe even being able to polish the surface to look hard surface. But what do I need to get started to? Okay, I want to officially make something in Zmodeler. What are some of like the Zmodeler 101 stuff? Where should I start?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to follow along. As whatever you say is what I'm going to start doing. So
yep.
And I think we had talked about the project that we're going to work on today was we were maybe going to make some animals. And a good exercise you had said for this is to kind of choose an animal and try to make it in a mech form. So you have chosen, what do I see there? I see some birds.
Yep. I'm going with a bird that I'm going to turn into a mech. Go with a little bit of the Transformer world look of it, and just grab some references from things that are around us, right? Looking at maybe some mech birds that have already been done, looking at other things. Obviously, Star Trek up there. I like what's happening with this wing. Thinking about that, then taking things that actually are like ships and using some of that ideas and pieces. It's just like when they used to make miniatures in the film industry all the time, right? They would literally go to the local model store and buy like parts from like a car and things like that. Start
True.
gluing it all
Old
together.
school kit bash.
Yeah, old school kit bash, which you can do it. Then you, in essence, can do that in ZBrush.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of this. I know a lot of people will use dual monitors, so this would be the first thing. Yeah, go get some references, get some inspiration, get some things now, and don't try to stay in. Okay, I'm making a bird, and then start just only looking for animals that people have done also on hard surface. Like do what I've done. Look at like obviously Star Wars and something, because you'll see things that are happening in here that you can carry through. And then that's will start hitting it to be even more look like it's a hard surface and tell the story a little bit better. Because in my opinion, we're telling stories. That's what we're doing here, right? You
got several Laserbeak shout outs.
Yes.
I'm going to go. Also, I'm going to do a bird, but I kind of want to do a little standing bird. So my reference is I'm going to do an ostrich because they're probably one of my favorite birds, or secretary birds, which are also awesome. So I will be doing something like this to follow along as Paul gets started. So we'll bounce back and forth between our streams and screens so you can kind of see what we're doing here. But all right, so we've got our subjects that we're going to make.
Yep.
What's the best way to start? Like if I were to start organically, I would just, sculpt the shapes, but is there a different way you would recommend to start?
No, that's actually the way that I like to start. Okay. So and this goes back to, this is why I wanted to come to this piece. If you look at this, he's a Mac. You can tell he's hard surface, but if you look, he's actually a Dynamesh right now. He's 1.7 million, and he's mostly all one subtool. And there's a reason why I'm doing this. It goes back to, and then we're going to dive. It goes back to again the non-destructive workflow. Okay. And I want the ability, okay, is this shoulder actually the right size? And this is what I mean, what we were talking about. Hard surface doesn't work. Okay, let me just change the size, because if you look, this shoulder's also got some cylinders going on. There's some cubes. There's another cylinder going on. It's not just a simple grab the move brush and change the size. It doesn't, it just doesn't work the same. So I need to set myself with a workflow that's going to work best for me. So personally, my go-to, this is it. This is the secret. My go-to is a cube. It's a cube. Yes.
All right. So we're going to load up a tool. I assume we're just going to load up the cube.
Load up any. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to turn it into a Dynamesh anyway. So it doesn't matter what cube you start. I'm just going to get rid of all the project stuff that I had already had open. Okay. So you can start with any cube. Not really relevant what cube it is. There's multiple ways to make cubes. And when we get into some Zmodeler stuff, there will be relevant. It will be important what cube you use for sure. Okay. So this one's got subdivision level, so I'm just going to delete it. So I have this. The one thing I would say also, whenever I'm doing hard surface, I always turn my perspective camera off.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a lot of features that are camera based that can do some crazy, amazing stuff. So I want to stick with that ability as much as I can. Okay. So I turn that off. And also because of me, I'm always printing stuff. It's actually better to have the camera off, actually, because you don't want distortion anyways. So then I'm going to Dynamesh this. So
are you looking for it to be pretty high res, or does it matter right now?
I usually stay low, and that's the thing too. I relatively stay low because my goal here is to kind of do a proportional kit bashing thing. I want to make sure before, like if you look at even the Laserbeak, right? What is his head size relevant to what's going on in his body, right? How big is this wing compared to this wing? Like that's the stuff I need to first establish. And then for me, I work in stages 1, 2, 3, and 4 for hard surface. And to me, stage 1 is the most important, period. Because it's getting your proportions right, it's getting your sizing right. All that stuff becomes important. Because you don't, the worst thing you can do is start going hard. Oh yes, I'm gonna make the greatest head. And then you pull back and like the head's like this big compared to the body, or vice versa.
And then now you're just jacked up,
and now you're in a corner with baby, and there's no Patrick Swayze to come save you. Okay, don't go in that corner. Don't go in that corner. Non-destructive. Let's work it. Okay, so I turn off the blur. For this, I'm just going to keep it at the default 128, and then I Dynamesh. Yay, we made something. Okay,
we've done it. All right,
we've done it.
We've made it.
So now, what I want to start doing is start looking at like some of my references, getting some feeling. So I'm going to go a little bit of body, more like him. I'm going to go more simplified, more than the detailing stuff, especially because of what we're doing today. So for me, the easiest way to start going about this is using our clipping brushes, right?
Okay.
So I use these clips and these slices a ton. So
I'm going to curve or slice curve with your go-to. Yeah.
I use clip curve is my go-to for this, right? So I just want to start, in essence, looking at this and going, okay, I don't need it to be that tall, right? And then clip it, and then I'm re-dynameshing it, right? So just kind of start getting a general, where am I going with this thing? Okay. And then I start looking at this. Everyone starts, well, how am I going to get the head to fit in here and all this? How am I going to get all this beveling? I don't worry about any of that. That's like stage 2 and 3 for me. Stage 1 for me is, what is even the size of this thing, right? How big is this? Is how I got to fit 2 of these. I got to get this angle right. All that stuff is what's important to me. Okay. So of course this will work symmetrically. So then I'll go from different profiles and I'll say, okay, this one's coming. I'm going to do a little in the back here, right? I'm going to use, by the way, I'm going to use this. I don't know if you guys know this. You guys can click on this.
Oh yeah.
And it'll rotate. So if you guys want to make sure you're looking at the front, there, I'm looking at the front.
Okay. So I had actually removed that, but that is a really good feature to put up if you're wanting to make sure you're looking at the front side of an object, especially when you're doing this hard surface stuff. That's good to know. Cool.
And then these are we'll show these as we get something building. These are actually the flip between side and left, up and down, and so forth. Okay, so I'm just going to start clipping some stuff here and re-dynameshing, right? I'm not going to go exactly with laser beak. Okay, I'm just kind of a little bit in that realm. So I don't like that. So again, I'm going to say, okay, I want a harsher, something more like that. Okay. And this is where you could have some more fun. This is something I think a lot of people aren't aware of, but maybe I want to play. Let me see what this would look like for me. So I'm doing a clip, but not a complete clip.
And how do you do that incomplete clip? Is it like holding down? Is it like space, or what was? There's a key for that. I'm trying to remember.
There. So I'm using the brush size. Number 1 is what controls that, and what I've turned on is the B radius.
Gotcha.
So I'm telling it to turn on the brush. And there's an important menu because, everyone that's used these brushes, you can actually make these brushes also create polygrouping as you work, which can be very beneficial to you down the road. Okay.
How do I get that menu to pop up?
So it's the menu to pop up. I'm using the shortcut, and we did it because when we were making these brushes, I always wanted to pull this up and look at it. So I'm holding Control and Spacebar.
Got it.
Right, which it's found over here in the brush palette. Actually, I know it's hidden away in the brush palette right here. Clip brush butterflies. I'm being joked because it's a brush and it's been there for years, but it's right there, so you guys can see it also in your menu. Make sure you guys can see my menu. Okay, yeah. So you doing stuff like this can start now. The old saying, happy mistakes starting to happen, right? And then so I kind of like that. I'm gonna make him have a different angle, and I'm just quickly trying some things. This is kind of why I like doing Dynamesh, right? Because I'm working on just, trying out a little bit of a design here to him and seeing kind of, I want to go now a little bit. And this is why I'm Dynameshing it. This is why I don't tend in a lot of cases to start with low polygon. Because this is one of the reasons I want to experiment a little bit, especially if I'm making something that's my own. See, I'm going to make something back here now. I like what's going on. I like what's going on there. I like it. Okay, so here's an example of using something like polygrouping, right, to do something, okay? This is what normally everybody would do, okay? I want to make something else back here. So this is going to end up being his, like, airflow, rocket, space, So if you're, also, here's a good thing to look at, too, when you're doing hard surface. Go look at things that are actually in real life world, working. In essence, any kind of flying apparatus has an intake and outtake of airflow, right? So there's always somewhere where there's some kind of that happening. And so as artists, gets like be a little creative and have some fun with that. So I'm already seeing this shape I'm getting right here is a great airflow coming out the back for me. Okay. So I want something to go there that kind of looks the same, right? So here's something that I will do always. So I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to turn on my gizmo, okay? And I'm going to just copy what we've been making or what I've been making in this sense. Okay? So to do that, you're just holding Control and clicking on any arrow. And now I'm copying. And you can see what I've been making is now masked, and I've got a copy of the piece. By the way, I got to show this. I got to get used to the Windows keyboard. Okay, so when you do this copy, you guys can also make multiple of
Ooh,
it
that's fancy.
and repeat it as many times as you want to.
How are you? Is it at a specific distance or is it?
You set the distance. So
Okay.
you set the distance. So when you hold control and click on the arrow, it's just doing a copy, right? So right now my finger's still on control.
Mhm.
And then my pen's obviously clearly still on my Cintiq. I'm using a Cintiq. Okay.
Mhm.
And then when I let go of control, but don't let go of the pen and I just keep moving my hand, ZBrush knows you want to keep repeating the same thing and
I
copy.
did it. Look at this.
There you go. Bada, 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 boom.
Oh, that's
Right?
cool.
If you got, okay, so with
See my
Josh,
body I got so far. This is
yes.
the body of my bird.
Man, you're on fire. You don't even need me. You don't even
All right.
need me. So what you actually ran into is another feature. So he did this.
Yeah.
Right. So what this is actually, look, an extrusion. You can actually extrude as well. Right. So if something is partially masked, as you can see right now, mine is partially masked. Now, let me see if I turn off the lines. Is that a little bit better? Here, let me go. I'm going to go with the brighter material just for the sake of streaming for you guys.
Sure.
Let's go with skin shade just so it's brighter. There we go. So this is masked off. So if you guys do the same thing, this is now an extrude instead of a copy, doing the exact same thing. And then the same, and then you're getting multiple extrusions happening across there, right? So, okay, let's continue on. So Josh has already got a great head going. He's going to want to maybe start making a neck and everything else. So this is where I'm saying what I like to do, okay? I'm not sure where I'm going with this. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to just copy this. And this is not what I want. Okay. So I'm going to click on the gear. And this is going to pull up the deformers and geometrical shapes. And I'm going to say I want a cube. Boom, I got a cube. Right? I literally just deleted the thing that I copied and replaced it with a cube. This is an awesome feature. I'll show you other ways I use this as well.
I was going to say, it's so awesome. I think I need you to show me one more time how to do it so I can make a little neck piece here. All right, so you created a piece, like you had controlled dragged the piece out.
And so what's happening now is the one part's masked off, right?
Right.
And then the second part's not masked off, right? So now all I'm going to tell ZBrush is, okay, wherever your gizmo sits is important because that's where the piece is going to be dropped in. So what I mean by that is if the gizmo is sitting way up in the sky, that's where it would go.
Got it.
Yeah, like that, like right, what you got. And then I usually hit the little map quest a lot of times, the little bing, the little map quest thing that recenters your gizmo. So the icon's on the back. Old school like map finder. I'm here.
Yes. Is that this?
Yeah, that essentially. And you've got symmetry on, so it's actually going to symmetrically do it on either side. So if you turn symmetry off, then bam, you got that, right? And so now all you need to do is click the gear.
Gear.
Yep. And then now pick a shape along the top. Bam, there you go. You got a new shape, right? So here is now where my non-destructive craziness starts coming into play for you guys, okay?
All right.
If we remember, I started with a Dynamesh, right? So you guys that have used Dynamesh, you're probably used to, okay, I'm going to re-Dynamesh, and now what we have here is everything's welded together. I never work this way, ever, especially if I'm doing hard surface, because I don't want those to weld. And this is what I mean. What if you change your mind as an artist? You're like, I don't really like what you did there, right? Now you're like, oh, how am I going to get rid of it? You're in that corner. You're in that corner, right? With Baby. Okay, for those that don't know the movie, look it up. Okay, you'll know it. Just use that phrase. You'll find it on Google. So this is what I do. I know I have two polygroups here now. So what I do is I come over here in a Dynamesh and I turn on groups and then I re-Dynamesh. And so what I have here is the same thing, but they're not welded anymore. And what this opens up for me now is this. I can now go, okay, I want to change the design of this now. And you notice I just quickly masked off the red part and this part's not masked by using the gizmo. And now I can say, okay, I want this design to go a little bit like this, and then a little bit about that. And then, yeah, I want to carry that idea through. And then I'm going to go, I'll go straight across. So this opens up for me creating a completely little bit different looking shape. And then I can move it around and do whatever I want with it, right? So at any time, I can boom and move this however I want, stretch it if I want it to be longer, and then do something like that. That makes sense?
does. Yes, I am beginning to make the neck of my bird, I think.
Yeah.
I've got this all Dynameshed. It's separately grouped, so I can adjust those nice and easy, it looks like.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. So it just opens up a way for me to constantly be changing this. So, you know, I want to come change the size of this. I know I'm not affecting the red part anymore, right? There's nothing affecting that. And right. And then I can continue. Well, here I want to follow, in essence, I want to follow the line of this here, right? And then follow a line of this here, something like that. And then start playing around with this idea and this design here. Okay. The other thing that I like to do when I start doing this now is, okay, I'm going to go back to this little thing here, but this time I'm going to use the deformers.
Okay.
So I'll use a lattice. This is like, in essence, a lattice deformer. It's my friend. I love it. Okay. And what I want to do is actually limit my lattice points, honestly. So
it's easier to control with less. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cones are, in essence, so our deformers in ZBrush have their own symmetry. So they're no longer they're the symmetry based upon the gizmo. Because my gizmo is sitting perfectly centered and in the X and Y Z perfectly, that's why my lattice is doing what it's doing. So what I mean by that, just so everyone can understand, if I did this instead, see how it's on an angle now, and if I go and click on this deformer, see the deformer's on that angle. This is really important. So this helps me when we start placing hard surface stuff that's kind of like on an angle and stuff like that. I can still adjust it with deformers, you know, and I use this all the time, right? So let me undo what I've done now and get back into this. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want symmetrically to work on the deformer. So I'm going to pull this red cone out. That's telling ZBrush there's two symmetry modes actually in the deformer, this particular deformer. So I want mirrored. So you notice half the white dots disappear.
Yeah.
They're gone, right? And the orange cones are in essence controlling your lattice points. So I'm going to make those go pretty much to nothing. I want like that. In essence, I want only 4 points available to me. That's it.
I see. So just by pulling the orange cone is basically the amount of points that you want on that.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. And in this case, I want very minimal because I want to kind of put a taper on this. And I want to kind of control it. So what I'm going to do now is tell ZBrush, I'm going to, if you notice, I just masked those 2 points. This is something else I do a lot of. And this will work on any mesh. So when you hold control and drag out, right? If you look at me now, look up here at me, right? If this is, see how it's a darker square, and now it's a white. See, dark and white. So this is me holding the Alt key. So what this now tells ZBrush, anything in the white box, stay. Everything outside the box, mask. And so we're masking these points, in essence, is what we're doing, right? So now that I have, hold on, I'm going to kick on my fan here. Right? Now I can do stuff like this. And you can see the only thing now that's moving is, you know, I can get some kind of little quick tapering happening there. And then there, I'm happy with what I got, re-Dynamesh, and then I move on. Right? And you can see where we're going, where I'm going with this in essence.
I have one quick question. As you were doing that, I was doing that on the head of my bird. So I limited it, had it mirrored like you had it. When I masked this, which is I think what you did, I could then stretch this.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I was going to maybe do like a little bit more of a mask or something. How do I get these points back now? I saw that they kind of disappeared.
Yeah. So you got to clear your masking, right? Okay. So you got to, obviously you're using masking to do this. So let me turn mine on too. So just in case you guys want to see it. So once you have the points, you know, so when you mask and you want to bring everything back, you just clear your mask if you want to, and then you can hold control and tap. We'll inverse.
Okay.
See, I'm going from.
I see. So it was just hidden and it was just all fully masked.
Yeah. So then if you clear it, you can clear your mask. Either you're clearing it and then you hold control and just tap.
Great. Cool.
Same kind of thing you do when you're just sculpting in essence. That's kind of why we did that, because your mind's already kind of used to that masking thought process, and that's where it's coming into play. All right, moving along now, right? I'm going to start putting some wings on him, I think, okay? So again, I'm staying with this workflow of just quickly getting something. You know, obviously, if Josh and I weren't talking to each other and I won't shut up, this would probably be a faster process. I won't be quiet. It's just in my nature to talk. Okay, so again, I'm looking at this, by the way, in the top right a lot, and this is my friend up here. This is my big time friend. By the way, you can put an image in here if you want in the background too. So
Cool.
you just tap on it. You can plop an image reference if you want to in there. I don't. Why wouldn't you want a star? I'm a superstar now, right? There you go. So you can put an image in there if you want to. You can even make this bigger, but I love this thing, and you can change it. It doesn't have to be black and white either. Okay, enough said. There's just so much I can share. I just can't help myself. Okay, so I want to make the in essence the wing, right? So that's what I want to start doing. So I'm doing the same workflow, copying, and then making a cube. Okay, and now I want to start just quickly sizing this down to what I want. I'm going to go about there. Okay, yeah, kind of like that. I'm going to taper it, probably go a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less there. And then I re-dynamesh. And then now this is completely still separated, right? And what I mean by that, it's not connected.
Right, it's all one piece.
Right, so then this is what I do. See, I just masked off now 2 polygroups with 1 click. So if you look at it in a sense, you guys should be using this organically. This is not just a hard surface thing. Here, I'm going to pull up another model just so people are aware of understanding what I'm doing here. And we're just looking at this guy, right? And you can see he's got multiple polygroups. You know, for 1,000 points, how many polygroups are there? Yes, you're right, 6. Good job. Okay. So if you turn on the gizmo, okay, and you hold control and tap on a polygroup, all other polygroups get masked off, except the one you tapped on. I can't tell you how often I use this. It's crazy, especially for hard surface.
Right.
We start getting in insert mesh brushes and things like that too. So that's in essence what I'm doing when I'm masking stuff off. And then now we just go at it. So here, I like what's happening in this wing. So I'm going to use this guy a little bit as a reference for a little bit. So I'm going to start now just doing the typical thing that we've already talked about. First, get a little bit of a tapering there. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to re-dynamesh that. You know what? I also want this to be on an angle. I'm going to have this just like that. It's on an angle a little bit. I'm going to give him a love there. But before I do that, here's the chest thing. Before I do that, I know I'm going to want to put a little bit more design in this. So I'm going to do it now because it's just going to be a little bit easier for me to put a little bit of some kind of maybe tapering in there.
So if you're like going to work on something that's off an axis, you would at least get some of the initial stuff. It's easier to do it when it's like on a straight axis. So you're going to kind of prep some of that work.
Yeah. I'm going to start looking at, because if I know what I'm making, I know there's, again, that process, right? This is again why I say it's chess. You know, I know I'm going to do this, this, and this, right? And so I want just a little bit of taper in there. And let me see what it looks like with, there we go. I want that line in mine right there.
I got a question from Twitch, which is a good question. Is it possible to dynamesh only one part of the subtool, or you have to dynamesh the entire subtool as a whole?
You got it all. It's by subtool basis, so you got to do the entire subtool.
The whole thing. Cool.
The whole thing. It's looking at the entire bounding box of the subtool, and then that's how it's calculating to do a re-dynamesh. That's what it's doing. Okay, so obviously I didn't make the other side of the wing, and then now I definitely want to put the rotation. I want to put a little bit of a rotation in it, maybe not as crazy. Yeah, that's enough for me. Okay, so obviously for me, go-to is mirror and welding, and then now I've got the other side. Right, so that's just a go-to for me for what I want to do. Okay, and then again, I'm just going to continue this process. However, you know, I want to come in here now. I want to throw a cylinder in the game, size this down, put a little what I see in a lot of jets in real life. Hence why I said go get some real referencing also too. See what we're doing already in engineering and doing stuff and add that to part of it. So this is going to be some kind of maybe little gun coming off. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. And I want something like that, and I want it to come off like that. And then this is what I'm going to do. Repolygroup it. Right, so I flip the mask there. because I know right now my workflow is me keeping these all separated like that.
Right.
Right. And then just mirror and weld over the other side if you don't have the other side. Pretty simple.
You use mirror and weld function quite a bit.
Yeah, I use it a ton myself, personally, especially since I don't have any subdivision levels. And right now I'm in like what we like to call my design phase in essence, right? I'm just trying to design something out and seeing what I like. Right? So again, as you guys can see, this is now the process for me. I'm just literally duplicating, putting a new shape in, putting it where I want, getting kind of the sizing. This is what I mean by sizing and things, like making sure this is all correct. Like worrying about, oh, it doesn't look perfectly hard surface. I don't care. I'm not too worried about that because there's going to be things that we're going to be able to do to resolve that actually.
Right.
And if we have time, I'm going to show a cool trick too that we can do. So now I'm going to say redynamesh that. Okay, I want to mask that off, and then I want to put some kind of taper in here. I don't know what taper I want until I get what I want. Okay, that. You know what? I'm going to also put a taper this way. Kind of keep a little bit of that theme I have going in other spots. And then there you go. And then the other side. Okay, I definitely want these to be closer together. And this is what I'm saying, non-destructive, right? I am not able to do this unless I'm having this little groups option on to readjust where I want things to go. That's why I'm doing this. And then this is going to help me start separating things off into subtools as well. Okay. Oh, and then
when it's all split up into a bunch of pieces, because it's just easier to control, and you don't have to separate it and break it into a ton of million little tiny bits, and just generally cool.
I will say this, I don't know about for you, but I find, when you're doing hard surface, you're going to probably use a boatload of subtools, more than probably any other organic piece. At least for me, I find that like I get into the hundreds upon hundreds when I'm doing hard surface. Once we start getting into what we're going to get into next here in a minute, start now bring in some live Boolean and start doing some Zmodeler here. You'll see what I'm saying with this, right? So I need to just give him some kind of head right now real quick. He can't be headless. It wouldn't make any sense. So I'm going to go with the laser beak kind of thing where I want it to be just some simple cube shapes that are going to have some pivoting to them. So I'm just going to position those. Yeah, I don't want it to be that big. That's excessive. There. And this is where you guys, get a little Bob Ross going. There. Happy little trees.
So I got a question for you. I was starting to block out my head, my ostrich head. Yeah. And so I got this piece, and I put a little brush radius on it, and I do this little clip, make this shape. Is this going too far into this shape, or should I wait to add this level of detail?
Yeah, I personally don't go that far at this time because the stupid chess analogy. Down the road, I'm going to use live Booleans to make that nice cut, and then I'm just going to throw another subtool, and that's going to create that other shape that you're going for what looks to be a little bit like eyes, maybe, or something like that. Too.
Okay, so wait for this level of detail.
Yeah. Cool. Because if you jump too soon, it's just like both of us, we're not even put our person together yet, right? So I want to make sure that stuff is right first for me. And again, people, I'm just showing you guys the way I like to work. Okay, it's just a personal preference. Like I said, I like using, and I just like saying non-destructive a lot. Okay, it's just cool to say it. Right? And then I'm going to put another, and I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to put, he's going to be like this, and I want this to be smaller. And yeah, I kind of like that. Kind of like where I'm going with this. All right. And you guys, you got to like what you're making sometimes, right? Too. And we'll go bird head like this. Okay, let me okay, there we go. And again, right now, this is just looking like what the heck is happening, right? And this is what I mean by non-destructive again. I didn't like how far that head was sitting up like this. It's too high up for me. So I want to move it down. Something like that right in there, right? And again, if you look, I've been copying the same piece. So this is important. because we're using this groups option, right? So any polygroups that's the same, they're going to weld, right? So what I want to do is inverse. What I want to do is inverse my mask and then repolygroup with Control W. Now that's its own polygroup. Now, this is important to understand, and Josh knows this, I'm sure too. If see this purple piece, those two pieces are the same, right? So I want to make them be separate polygroups because I want to stick with the workflow that I'm messing around with right now. So if I redynamesh, those weld. I don't want those to weld right now, okay? So I need to make them different polygroups. So you guys can either come down here and hit auto groups, right? And then you can see every single geometrical shape, in essence, gets its own polygroup now. Okay? And so that means even this has got a different polygroup than the other side. As you can see, this different than this. And then those two are different, right? So if you don't want to do it that way, here's something that I think you all should know, especially for hard surface. I'm going to select literally a portion of this, barely any of it at all, and then grow the whole thing out and repolygroup it. Like, this to me is a hidden little gem that a lot of people aren't aware of, that you can actually grow your selections in ZBrush and shrink your selections. And then
the hotkey for that is the same as like increasing, it's like shift brackets or not the bigger?
No, so the easiest way I always explain this, so selection in ZBrush, you're always holding down what keys? Control and shift, right? So we're selecting, so I'm going to hold down Control and shift, and I'm just going to select out a portion. And then because I want to continue selection, if you're holding down Control Shift, every time you click on the X as an expand, we expand one edge loop in the topology. Okay, if you tap on S, it's shrinking one edge loop of the topology. And again, my fingers are still on Control Shift, and if I hit tap A, it says that's all. And where that is right above polygon visibility. So you see there's a grow all, there's your grow, and then there's your shrink.
Got it.
Right. So, and then I just repolygroup that because I want that to be different. And then now I redynamesh because as you can see, this, I don't want that sticking out of his head. That looks ridiculous. So then this is just me now. Okay. It just needs to be pushed in. Okay. And I'm going to put a little bit of different angle in there. And then maybe different angle in there. Yep. I'm going to go with that. Oh, and down here. And you can see why I kind of like to work in this little bit of a workflow. Just opens things up. Okay. Let me do a little bit of the head, and then we're going to get into some new features. Also, let me turn symmetry on. Yeah, there we go. And I think I'm going to add another taper here. And then from above, I'm going to use that line that I did there. And there we go. Okay. There we go. I've got now my head. I've got the body going. I got some wings going. Okay. Chicken wings. No. All right. So I want to now continue the process, and I want to now start using other features for me. Okay. So this, again, the way we've been going is this is all one subtool. So this is what I mean by I've been keeping in groups, so now I can start knocking stuff off and making it its own subtools, which is going to be important for me, right? So for me, I want my body to be its own, so I'm going to separate the body in its own subtool. I want the wings, so I'm going to split those off, okay? And then I want those pieces to be their own. So of course you can, if you want to, right? Now that I have these pieces, you guys don't have to do the showing and splitting. There's all these other ones, split the parts, split the similar parts. We'll just look at the mesh and then automatically split off the subtools based upon topology. So it looked at every single piece and see it did that. It said, okay, this one's got this many. It's got 2,600. This one's got 5,300. So that's what it's seeing. It's seeing that there's parts to it, and then that's all it did. It just broke them all apart. Okay, so now I've got everything I did is now separate pieces. Okay, I'm gonna keep it like this. We'll turn off solo. So now that I have that. Okay, so here's personally what I'm going to be an avid person that I'm going to push you guys to. Number one, I would probably start getting good at naming your pieces. Because if you look, I've got cube, new, UVs, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 1, right? So I would, number one, say that. And number two, I'm a big fan of folders. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just going to put this in a folder. Main parts, I'll just say. Okay. And so now adding stuff to the folder, there's actually two ways to do it. So you can either click and drag and just start putting things in a folder like this. Okay. Or there's another way to do this, which is a fast way, especially when you start working with a lot of pieces to do this. So let's say I want the head parts to be in their own folder. Okay. So I'm going to click the head. I'm going to turn on the gizmo. Okay. It doesn't need to be centered. It's just as my ADD kicking in once again. And I got to have everything be perfect. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is, you guys are all in this stream. You're all invited to the party with Josh and I, you know, and if we're going to have a real party, we need some pizza. Okay. We need a lot of, I don't know how many people are watching us right now, but we need a lot of pizza. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn on the pizza boxes, which is really subtools icon in the gizmo. It's not pizza. This is Joseph Dress came up with pizza boxes, and then I added the party part to it. Right. So in essence, it's just me and Josh hanging out, we only need one pie, right? Between the two of us, but there's all of you here. So think about it in subtool sense. If I'm trying to move one subtool, that's it. I'm only trying to move one subtool. I want to move multiple subtools at once. I need to tell ZBrush, hey, there's a lot of us in the party right now. We need to move multiple subtools. That's what that icon is. It's not pizza boxes. It's subtools. Okay.
Right.
And so now I'm going to do a selection. And what I'm going to do is select the pieces that I want. And this now allows me to move this as a group, as a unit. Right. But what it also does is if I hit Control F, I can make a new folder. And I'm going to say always yes. And I'm just going to say head parts. And then bam, I got a new folder with all three of them already in there.
Nice.
So the reason why I've become a big folder advocate person, or why I really love the folder system, is then I can always recall what we just did right there really easily. I just go over here to the gear in this folder, right? So I'll turn on my over here, right? And then I click on that, and we got options. And the top option is transpose set. I click on that, boom. That's it. And now I can get back to me moving my head, maybe where I want it. Maybe I don't, maybe I want it to sit lower. Maybe I want it to sit higher, or I don't know. I'm wherever I want it to go.
Right.
Okay. So again, using that a lot. All right, we're good. We're going to continue on because I want to start showing some new stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to start now with maybe the body here, start doing some more elements as well. The wings here, I want to start doing some more elements. So I want to show the spotlight, and then we're going to start going into Zmodeler after this. We'll use in the head, we'll start doing some Zmodeler stuff. Okay. And then these we'll use some Zmodeler stuff as well. But I want to show this because I want to put a little bit of extra stuff in my wings here. I kind of want to make it so it's not just one big wing, not like Laserbeak, but more like what they're doing here in these more, you know, detailed. And same thing with this, right? What's going on there? So this is where I love using the spotlight. Okay. So I'm in Spotlight right now, which are all my images here, right? For my referencing. So I'm going to load something else. I'm going to open up Lightbox, which is the comma key. Okay. That's all you got to do. And then you hit the Spotlight. Okay. And then there's going to be pre-made alpha images here. Okay. I'm just going to load this one right here, which is just a 512 Spotlight. And then this is what we get. So in essence, we loaded this and all my reference images are gone. In essence, I've loaded a Spotlight file.
Okay.
I can reload. So obviously for my referencing, I've saved out my own Spotlight file. So right here on the top of texture, there's load and save. So I can always pull back my references. But right now, I want to use these. Okay. And what I want to do now is start using this for me to go, okay, I'm going to take a cube shape, this. Okay. And I'm going to size it up, right? A little bit. And what you'll see now is this image can be moved around. Do you want me to go like through the whole, like, how does this work? Or do you want me to just go? What do you think?
A little bit of both. So I'm following around. I think, you know, maybe a little slower. So I kind of drag the same thing over. I've selected it as you can select it basically. And then you can kind of scale it up. That's fade. Which one's
You got your scales right here in the top corner. So 1 o'clock. And then when you scroll over the icons, we tell you what it is in the middle as well, if you can't remember.
Okay.
There you go. And okay, so where your dial sits is important.
Okay.
So this is, we're in edit spotlight mode where you're editing the images. You're not doing anything in the model right now. So as you've used Spotlight before, I'm assuming, yeah? So the middle dial for everybody, that'll allow him to move the dial. And what we've added now is snapping ability. Ooh. So as you move that, you'll see when he hovers over the images, you'll see little dots pop up. That's allowing him to snap directly to the center, right? And what we've also done is giving you the ability to snap these images to the mesh underlying. So right now, Josh has got his body selected. So if he moves his image down, he'll start finding the middle points of the mesh.
Yeah, look at that.
Right? So, and you don't tell you snapping to the center, snapping. So this is important because what I'm going to start doing is I want to find the center of my mesh, in essence, for me. Okay? So I want to find, boom, center of the wing. There's center of the wing, right? And then now there's a green line and a red line. Obviously, there's vertical and horizontal, in essence. So I want to start moving this, and then I want to stay along that line like this.
Got it.
Right? So I'm using the snapping. So I start to move it and then hold the shift key, and then ZBrush is going to snap to either, if I'm going this direction, it's finding the green. If I was going the other direction, it would find the red. Okay, so I'm just going to position this here, and I'm going to resize this down to something like that. I'll go a little bit smaller. I'll go a little bit smaller. So I know that's sitting, in essence, center of the bounding box of this wing. Right. What I'm going to do next is one of my favorite things. There's also a deformer for this. I'm going to extend this out. Whoops, and make this be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to keep extending this, and I want the image to go past like that. So in essence, I want the image to be passing the actual mesh. So this is an extension. So this is Christmas in the corner, as I like to call it. We're always giving presents over here.
Sure.
Right. So I'm clicking on this extend H, which is the 2 red arrows that are opposite direction. Okay. And then the greens obviously are going the other way.
Some people, we got a couple people that would love just a quick rundown of how to get back into Spotlight. So you can just run through that real fast, just so they know how to get to the menu that we're at.
Yep. There's 2 ways to do it, everybody. So you either have a preloaded thing like I loaded. So that's all I did is I went into my light box, and then there's a folder here called Spotlight. And then you double click on any one of these, and we'll load those images over these images. However, if you guys want to start from scratch, like I obviously did with my reference images, you come into here. I don't need to save. I'm confident about my work. Okay. So you go here to your texture palette. Okay. And then you click on either import an image, or you click on any image. And right here, you see there's an add to Spotlight. Okay, so if I click on this, it's going to reset the Spotlight, but I'll do it anyways. And seeing this is what it does. It just added that to my Spotlight. So that's it. You can only add 1 image at a time into it. So what I would recommend is add all your images that you want, and then you can move them around where you need them.
Got it.
Make sense? And then there's 3 ways to look at the images. So you can look at them this way, you can look at them that way, this way, or this way. Whatever way you want, right? So these are organizers right here. So this is tile selected. In essence, the image that's selected is tiling, right? So it's the biggest image, and the rest are little thumbnails below. This is unify. In essence, put them all to the left, you see, and they're all the same size, right? And then there's tile proportionate, which means whatever image is the biggest pixel-wise is the one that's going to be towards the top. So this one's 1K. It's 1024 by 1024. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but when you click on an image, we give you the size in the top. Look up here, actually, literally. Look up here, literally. Right? Right here, we'll give you the size. So when you click on an image, you can see the size will show up in that top. So that's how I even know what size of image I'm messing around with.
And the key for the shortcut was Z, Shift Z. So
turning it on and off, like as in you mean turning it off. So turning it off completely like this so that they're gone. In essence, now Spotlight's not being used. Now it's being used. Okay, so this is just on and off. So this is Shift Z.
Turn it on and off.
Okay, so there's two modes of Spotlight, remember. This is the now projection mode of Spotlight. So you see my dial's gone. So I'm not editing the images anymore. You only can edit the image when the dial's available like that. So then there's two modes of Spotlight. There's the edit the image mode, and there's, okay, use the actual image to project on the surface or whatever else, right? So that's the Z key, as in ZBrush. Or since we're doing mech animals, ZBrush.
Oh, said.
There, okay? So back to this now. I'm going to use the extender. I want to go a little bit more skinny with this. Maybe a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to go right about there in that world. Okay? And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this image and turn it into a piece of topology.
Okay.
Okay? And right now, my selected subtool, this is very important. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. This means if I ever do that annoying thing, I'm telling you guys something important. The selected subtool becomes, oh, what happened to me here? Here we go. The selected subtool becomes the important part to me because we're going to use this for this feature here in a second. Hold on, for some reason, all my displays went away. Okay, so I got the image selected, right? You got a little camera down here, right? What I'm going to do with this camera down here is I'm going to select this image. I'm going to hold the Alt key and tap on the camera. Okay, and what that's done is actually made a new subtool. And if I turn this off, and then what it's also done is done that. So I literally am using the shape to cut out of my wing right now.
And that's because you're using, is that because you're using the Alt key?
Yep. So what happens here? So let's visit this because I think this is very important. So I had the wing selected, right? It automatically generated a new subtool. And if you look, this new subtool is pretty much the shape from that image.
Yeah.
Okay. And because I have live Booleans on,
okay,
the Alt key automatically turned it to a subtractive subtool.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't have live Booleans on, so I was following along. But I created this shape here, which is what this from this.
Yep.
And then I guess if I turn this on, whoop.
Boom. Yeah. Now you've got that hole going through. And the key part here, why we're talking about with subtools, you look at Josh. Josh, this is a really good example. That shape is the exact depth of the last selected subtool he had.
Right.
Right. So you can see it's the exact width. So what we do is the subtool you guys have selected, that's what we're using as your depth of the mesh that gets created.
Right.
Okay. So what now this opens up for me is this. Okay. So now I'm going to add a little bit more extra element to this. So in fact, I'm going to undo and get this back, and you can keep going all the way. You can notice now, this is new. You weren't able to do this before. I can keep undoing and getting back all the way to a cube again if I wanted to, right?
Cool.
So what I'm going to do now is I want to use this cube. I'm going to size this up. I want it to go right there. I'm going to go right about there. And let's position it. I want to go, I think, right about there. Let's say like that. And now this is the selected subtool. So this time, I'm going to hold the Shift key and click on the camera.
Okay.
And what that just did is that.
So what is the difference between the Shift key and the Alt key when you're pushing the button?
Okay, so now if you look at my subtool, you can see I just added actually the cube to the existing subtool.
Oh,
so
I see.
Shift key adds to the existing selected subtool.
Got it.
The Alt key automatically creates a new subtool and automatically put it in subtractive mode.
Got it.
Right?
Cool.
And so now the next thing I want to do, I want another part there. So I'm just going to turn this back on. I'm actually going to resize this cube a little bit like that. And now I'm only just going to tap the camera. And what I get is that now. You guys can see where I'm going with this now, right? I'm starting to block out a little bit more, bring
more
in the
detail in there, kind of the articulation potential of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can see this just made a cube, and that cube's width, right, was based upon this first select this subtool, and you can see that subtool's width is the same as the new one that it's made. Okay. So
this is part of that chess element where you're blocking out a line, then you know what you're going to add to it. You're going to add a subtraction from it. You're going to, I see. Cool.
Yep. And then now, this I want to resize this. So the geometry that gets made here, I'm going to solo this out, is really beneficial for us. We got a polygroup here, we got a polygroup here, we got a polygroup in the middle. But if you notice, there are no geometrical spans in the middle by default. You can put spans if you want to. Okay. I don't want it because I want to do this. I want to resize this. Looking at now my piece, I'm going to resize this and say I want to go maybe about that big. Okay. And then I'm going to throw something else at this. Here's a hidden feature. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs. Now everyone's paying attention. Okay. So I'm going to come over here to my crease. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a bevel on this. So I'm just going to say, let's throw a little bevel. Bam. Got a little bevel on that piece. There you go. So what I'm doing is there's a bevel feature that looks at creasing of edges. But the hidden feature that if you guys hold the control key and then click on the slider and move it, you actually bevel based upon polygroups, not based upon creasing.
Okay.
You can see live updating of this. And this topology is perfect for this. So then there, I got, that's what I want. And then now I'm just going to rotate this to kind of match that. And then I want it to be positioned more like right there. And then there you go. Boom. And then that's going to start creating a point of interest where I can make my wings now actually flap a little bit.
Yeah, you get that nice articulation in there now.
Yeah, so get some articulation in there. And I live by the articulation, being a guy that does a lot of toy stuff and 3D printing stuff. And then, of course, to get the other side, I didn't do the other side. So it's just, you know, mirror and welding over, right? So I now go through and mirror and weld the other side for me. And now I got both sides. Bingo, bango. There is a, I don't know if I want, we'll do it with the Zmodeler. We'll show, there's an array mesh trick, okay, that you can do. Okay, so
kind of in place of that.
Yeah, there's a very cool trick with array mesh that I will use a lot in hard surface, and I'll show you guys that too.
Cool.
I'm going to do one more thing, and then we're going to move on to, I don't know what's going on. My Cintiq, it does not like me today. The touch is off, but it keeps like turning everything off on me. I don't know why. Okay, so I want to put a little more elements in the body here too. So I want the head. So this is just, again, my ADD kicking in. I think I can't work like that. There you go. And then size it. Then you can see, if you hold the control key, by the way, you can size just by moving your hand.
Oh, cool.
Right? So I'm going to size that up a little bit in there. And then now I want this, again, to be a subtractive. And then there you go. I want like that. So articulation area that starts to happen. And you can see why when Josh brought up like the point, hey, should I do that at that point? You can see why I'm saying no.
Yeah, don't do that yet.
Yeah, I can do all this. And then again, oh, I don't like that anymore. Turn it off and it's gone. Right? So very non-destructive workflow. Okay, let's move on and let's do some Zmodeler stuff. How are we for time even right now? So, okay, we're only an hour in. We're good.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
What I'm trying to show you guys too is just as many features as I can of using hard surface as well. I want you guys to walk away with this and go, oh, okay, the light bulb's going off and it's LED, so it's going to stay on for a long time. I just made that up on the whim, people. Enjoy. Enjoy. Okay. So the head, I kind of want to maybe redo. Okay. So it is very, very boxy in the sense that here, I'm going to just solo out. So we're only looking at the head right now for me. Okay. So this is getting into some of the stuff that Josh was asking me about too. I can't help it. I got to show you guys other things here though, too. Okay. So if you're in the world, like you love Dynamesh, you want to live in the Dynamesh world, obviously I could have had the resolution turned up a lot higher and these would be really sharp for us. Right. Okay. I didn't do that, but it doesn't stop me from cleaning this piece up a little bit if I wanted to. Okay. So number one, if you guys remember, I could have turned on polygrouping, right? And then when I clipped, right, I know this was creating a new polygroup, right? So when I did this, right, I get a new polygroup. So I can, in essence, go through my piece like this and get new polygroups. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this becomes important. By the polygrouping, because there's an easy way you guys can make this look really hard surface quite fast.
Okay.
Okay. So now that I'm starting to put different polygroups in here, we're going to be able to take advantage of other features. Let me turn on symmetry. Okay.
And just in case anybody missed it, like I did, how do I make sure that I get a new polygroup every time I do that?
Okay. So again, hold down Control and Spacebar.
Hit the polygroup
And
button.
right next to the B radius is polygroup.
Perfect.
So that was made for, so when you clip, you have polygroups. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So even though this is not anything pretty, right? If we're looking at the poly, it's not pretty. This is Qbert, right? 8-bit video gaming, what's going on right now along the edges. Okay. So here,
reference.
Yeah. What?
Did you make Qbert reference?
Qbert. Yeah, I sure did.
I don't know the last time I played or even remembered Qbert. Well done.
Yeah. I actually like to explain like Dynamesh as in a video game sense. Like,
sure.
If you have less resolution, you're making something that's more in 8-bit video gaming, 16-bit video gaming, right? Mm-hmm. And then Nintendo 64. So obviously resolution 64, you get more polygons, higher up, and now we're in almost realism, right? We're getting there. And that just means your resolution is turned up. That's how I like to explain Dynamesh in a quick and dirty way, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. So Josh wants to know stuff about Zmodeler, but I have to show this workflow to you guys too, because you guys got to decide now, right? If you notice, I've been picking and choosing some features now to do certain things. Mm-hmm. So I'm turning off this. Now, the key thing to this, everybody, this is a Lisa Needs Braces moment. If you remember, 45 minutes ago, I turned on groups. That tells ZBrush, when I read Dynamesh, every single polygroup, in essence, is its own shell, its own piece of geometry. If you're looking at my piece right now, that is not the case. Like, this is a flat plane. Mm-hmm. This will not Dynamesh very well. It'll look like Swiss cheese in essence. What I actually need to do is turn off the groups now. I don't need it anymore. I've figured out the head. I've separated. I don't need groups anymore. And then I'm in Dynamesh mode, and I can stay in Dynamesh mode, excuse me, if I want to. Now, what I want to do is clean up this polygrouping. Mm-hmm. Okay? So there's multiple ways to do this. I want to show this way because I think this is very beneficial. This is going to be, in fact, let me show the global way, and then I'll show the localized way to do it, okay? So in the tool palette, open up deformation, and you got polish by groups. You just slide this slider once, and wherever there are polygroups, you can see it starts to get clean. Okay, so you can see mine's a little wavy because obviously I had Qbert topology through here, right? So the more you push on this slider, see, the more it starts cleaning up and cleaning up. Now, I'm going to undo this, and if you notice, I'm going to turn on my magnifier. Along here, polish by groups, there's a little dot right here. Mm-hmm. We're not putting that just so I can say little dot in a stream. We're doing that because there's two algorithms, actually. So the closed dot, it's going to maintain your silhouette a lot better because the only thing it's actually polishing and changing are where the polygroups meet. That's it. So where the green and the red meet, those are the vertex points that are getting cleaned up. Mm-hmm. If I turn it to an open dot, I like to look at this. Well, it's fair game, and your silhouette can change. But what also means it's really strong, right? So you can do this, and then look how clean that gets. Boom.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if I took the time now to do all the polygroups, there's no one would know that this is a Dynamesh that's only 5,300 polygons.
Right.
Right? So with that said, here's another thing I want to share. You can see when I did this, what it's doing to the bottom, right? Because it's not polygrouped off yet. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what I might want to do is come into my masking, and right here, mask by feature, I'm going to turn off crease border, and boom, only mask the polygroups. Now, only where the polygroups meet is masked off. And okay. I inverse that, right? And maybe blur it once, and then now go back to my deformation, and then do this. And you can see the only thing now that's getting really smooth is that, because everything else is masked off. So see, this isn't even being touched on the bottom.
So walk through that part one more quick with the masking of that part right there.
Yep. So open up your masking menu. Mm-hmm. And right here, there'll be a big button that says mask by feature.
Yeah.
Turn off the border, turn off the crease, because you don't have a border, you don't just need mask like it. And now only where the polygroups meet gets masked. And then I inversed it because those are the vertex points I want to be nice. and then went to deformation, and then kicked
So
the ball.
this is off though, right? And then
I turned that. Yeah, I had an open circle because I wanted to be pretty strong.
Got it. Cool. Very cool.
And then now you clear your mask and probably do that open circle a little bit more, but at not as maybe full strength.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see how you can start playing with that.
Right.
Okay. The problem with this is it's global, right? It's happening to the whole surface.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like in my case and like Josh's case, he doesn't have everything polygrouped off yet the way he would want it. Right.
Yeah. Just
so you need to be able to locally do this. So Josh, I want you to hold the shift key, go back into your brushes, clear your mask, hold it and turn on polyframing so we can see your polygrouping. Zoom up to a part where like the yellow and the red, I guess, is. There we go. Okay. And what I want you to do is in the brush palette, at the very bottom, there's a menu called Smooth Brush Modifiers.
Under brush
palette. Very last menu on the bottom, Smooth Brush Modifiers. Open that up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you see the slider says weighted smooth mode.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually about 15 smooth brushes inside of ZBrush. So you see number 9.
Mm-hmm.
It says number 9 is groups intersect. What I want you to do now is hold the shift key and move that slider to number 9 while you're holding the shift key.
Okay, so it's depending on holding down shift.
Yeah, because you want to change the actual smoothing brush, you have to hold the shift key.
Okay.
Now go and smooth by your polygroups and watch what happens.
Hang on, I was on the move.
And now just smooth by your polygrouping.
All right, I was in draw mode. There we go. And so now I can just use actual smooth brush.
Yep. And it'll only smooth pretty much what you just did globally. Now you control it as a user.
That's very cool. I like that feature quite a bit because now I can control what the edges are just by where the polygroups are.
Exactly. Right. So in essence, what I'm showing you guys, even though why I went really low, you can see I wasn't too concerned about the resolution of my Dynamesh because I know I have features like this, hence this silly chess analogy. I know I've got these features down the pipeline I'm going to be able to use to clean up stuff if I want it cleaned up. Ooh. Right? So here's another way, okay, just to add to this chaos that I'm creating now for us. I'm going to use a plugin, right? And I'm going to use Polygroup It. Okay? And what this is going to do is launch another program for me. Okay, and this is the only thing in ZBrush that's using a video card. Nothing else in ZBrush uses a video card. So what this did is launched another program that has my piece in it now, right? And what I can do, since I know I have that polishing ability now, I can use this to say, okay, I want to put, right? I want to put something in here. I want to put a polygroup there and grow that out and say, okay, that is going to be one polygroup. That's a polygroup, that's a polygroup, that's a polygroup. And then you can see I can grow and shrink the polygroups.
Right.
Right. And I'm just clicking where I want to have different polygroups. I'm going to grow the blue one out a little bit more. Yeah, I'll go there, there, there. And I don't want that one to be as high. There, there. And I want to group there. We'll knock this down. And then I want one there. Change that resolution. And then there. And we need one in the front. Boom. Okay, so in essence, what I have here is a polygroup, right? And what I'm going to do now is tell it to fill it all. You can see every polygroup is now butting up to itself, right? So what I did is I hit Control F, and it'll fill them all. And then when I hit OK, right? I know what the problem is. Windows ink is giving me problems. Okay. It's going to come back, right, and give me the model with the polygrouping. Again, I'm confident in my work. I'm not saving it, right? And then now, of course, you can now start doing this stuff, right? And then you can see that piece.
Yeah, you get it to be very hard surface and much more controlled very quickly. Yeah.
The driver for Wacom is just taking over my computer right now. Okay, and then there you go. And that's super crisp.
Yeah.
Right? And then the next thing you throw at it, you've got all this nice and crisp. You come down here, turn off Dynamesh, go to ZRemesher, turn on the keep groups, right? I'm going to make this symmetrical. And then how much do you want? I'm going to go with like 1,000 polygons and remesh it.
Hmm.
And then boom, you've got now lower polygon, all cleaned up, polygrouping. And then when I divide, there you go, we're off and running.
Right.
And so then there's in essence my head in a quick way of doing
So would
that.
you go to that level of, polygrouping it, separating it, and then, getting the ZBrush clean topology every single time so that you're in a good place for Zmodeler, or are you working in this Dynamesh mode most of the time?
No, I get out of Dynamesh mode. So stage one for me is all the Dynamesh mode, figure out proportions, size. When I mean size is this bird like a massive bird that's way bigger than a human, or is it kind of like Laserbeak where he's tiny, right? And that's what I mean by size too. No, I try to get, if I'm going to now switch to Zmodeler, I want this ability now to have something low polygon.
Got it.
Right? And so now that I've done this, though, there's nothing stopping me to keep remeshing and seeing if I can even keep going lower, right? So I can say, let's do 500, and I don't need this smoothing anymore, and remesh it. And then see, I just got lower. I don't even think I need to go that low, but like this was probably good enough for me. Okay, and then now I throw on dynamic subdiv. I can see what that's going to look like once it's divided. And turning on dynamic subdiv is right there, and I'm just using the shortcut, which is D to turn it on, dynamite, and then Shift D to turn it off. And then you can see I'm already getting beveling, in essence, or chamfering along those edges because now it's really low polygon. And then now that is starting to become a hard surface piece. And now we want to get into some Zmodeler stuff.
All right. I'm going to try to catch up with you on my head probably so I can have a similar piece to work on. So I'll be right behind you.
All right. So while he's doing that, people, let me show you another way of making polygroups. Okay. Since Josh is catching up. So you guys can also, in the polygroup menu, this is really good if you guys are going to bring something like CAD based, like it's really triangulated. If you guys ever worked with CAD files, it's a disaster. The geometry that it spits out because it's NURBS quality and they're using surfaces, right? So it's really bad, and you can't sculpt on that. It's like fanning to poly. For those that are out there that have used CAD, you get what I'm saying. So one really good one to use is this groups by normals. So this is a one-click solution where ZBrush will analyze the surface and look for angle change, right? So you can see the bottom became its own polygroup, and the top became its own polygroup. So you have a slider here that tells ZBrush really how extreme an angle do you want me to look at. Right? So you can lower this, like I can put it at 15 degrees and click it, and you can see now I'm getting more polygroups. Okay? And then just see there's a little dot. That means there's two algorithms. And look at that one. That one pretty much almost where I'm at gave me relatively what I had before, right? Pretty close, right? So there's all these ways to go about this in essence, right? There's more than one way to do this.
I think that's the cool thing with all the features, though, is that there is so many different ways to approach it with how many different tools there are and the uses of the tools. So it's kind of like you can once you learn all the tools, I think, and this is what I've seen you do even on this stream and many of your own streams, is approach them maybe a couple times. Like once it will work, one time it won't work. Like you have to, or you know how to do it, but like, you can try different approaches all the time, and it's not always like this is the only way you have to do it every single time.
Right. And I think that's what I really love about ZBrush too, is, like we're all artists working differently. And one technique might be better than another technique. So, right. So why not? There we go. So are you caught up now?
Almost. I'm polygrouping my head. I'm realizing what I have done is maybe a little in this head is too many planes, kind of like you had said earlier. Like, so maybe I put, some of those B radius little details in there a little too much. Right.
But you got to remember, you can go and reuse that. Then you can use that B radius with clipping on a subdivided surface. So where you were going with that, you could do what you're doing right now. Then we're going to clean it up. And when you divide up, you can still get that exact same look that you had before.
Right.
And it'll be really clean, actually. So hit Control F will fill your polygroup so they meet. So in essence, it's like the grow and shrinking that we did for selections. it'll grow and it'll stop growing where it meets the next polygroup, in essence, is what happens.
Right. So now I hit OK.
Yeah, and then it's going to pop back into ZBrush with that polygrouping. So once it's done calculating, now it's got all those polygroups, and then I polish it off, and then I Z remesh it.
So you use the polish.
I use the open circle because I got everything now kind of where I want it. So I'll use the open circle.
Yeah, this is where those extra details, I probably shouldn't have had them in there. But I can just crank this up and it'll clear it out.
Or you can combine those, take those polygroups and make those three on the bottom of them if you wanted to, make them one, right? And then it'll make that a nice, like, yeah, that one, and that one. Make it one polygroup.
Do you have a hotkey for that?
Control W. Control W.
Thank you.
And then now bring it all back. Right? And then now polish, and that'll straighten out for you. Okay. And then instead of doing what you're doing with the slider, here's something else that you can do. Go to like the percentage of what you want. Let's say whatever, 100. You can do 100. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
And at the very bottom, there's a button that says repeat to active. So you don't have to keep touching the slider. Yeah. You click that, and it'll be whatever last deformation you did, that's what it's going to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's some of these other ones that were just too many.
Yeah, so you probably just want to go clean up some of your polygrouping a little bit.
Just like take these.
Combine some stuff. Probably, in this case, too, I'd probably do a mirror and weld, so then you have the same polygroups on the left and the right side. Yeah, which you can also, polygroup has symmetry ability to making polygroups as well. And then it'll be just easier for you to block out and get the polygroups that you want to be the same.
Right. There
you go. And then now you just polish it again.
So I do this again, and then I can just hit this a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still some things in there, but that's fine. I think for now we'll be in a good spot.
And now I remesh it with the keep groups on because I want ZBrush to pay attention to the polygrouping. And because it's now that slider next to it, which people aren't maybe aware of, that slider is made specifically, as you can see in the image, it's made specifically for Dynameshing, for our Dynamesh piece, where it's not clean actually. So that slider will do a polish by groups kind of in when it's remeshing before it actually remeshes.
Got it.
So that's what that slider is doing. So I kept it on because I know I already had it, so might as well do it again. And then it remeshes it, and then it looks also then at the polygrouping and remeshes based upon your polygroup, and then you'll get the new surface. And then now your lower polygon, and then now I start going to the point of turn on dynamic subdiv. So I'll hit D because I want to see what that's going to start looking like when it's divided up in essence. What look does that start having?
Perfect.
And then Shift D turns it off, D turns it on.
Great.
Right? And so now let's get into some Zmodeler stuff. Okay, so this is now, I'm at the point where I've got a head. I want to start doing some cool stuff with the head now. I want to start having some fun with the head with this. Okay. So, and then once we're done with this, we're going to move on to, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually build something from scratch with Zmodeler and also even remesh. Like, say, I want to get even way lower with this. I'll show you guys how you can remesh with this as well.
Okay, great.
And completely do this. Okay. So I'm just going to duplicate that just so I have another head because I'm going to start really messing around with this head. So Dynamesh and switching to Zmodeler is going to be key in the sense that like Josh said, I'm trying to get low polygon because it's best to use Zmodeler on low polygons if you can. You don't have to, but you can. All right. So this is going to be how Zmodeler works. I'm going to crash course this real quick. You know, in other programs, we're used to, in essence, selecting the component we want to mess with, whether it be the face, the edge, and the vertex point, right? And then you're in that. ZBrush has all three of those modes on all the time. So instead of using a mode selection, we're using the ability of hovering. So when you hover over a face, you're now in face mode. When you hover over an edge, right, you're in edge mode. And then when you go over a vertex point, you're in vertex mode. I don't need to do any switching. What it opens up for me is things like, oh, I don't want that edge loop. I don't want that edge loop. I don't want that edge loop, right? And I can start deleting things however I want, if I want to, right? And I didn't need to switch component modes, right? So what I'm going to do is start now using these options that we have in Zmodeler. So I'm going to be in face mode. So when we're hovering over this, if we hold spacebar, we now get actions, a target, and modifiers. So in essence, there's always going to be this action menu. There's always going to be this target menu. And then sometimes there'll be modifiers. So for example, if I switch to delete, you see there's no modifiers. If I go back to QMesh, there's modifiers. So in essence, that's for everything. So if I hover over an edge, now I'm looking at all my edge actions. And I hover over a point, I'm looking at all my point actions. Right? So what I want to do is I want to paint a temporary polygroup in here. So what I'm doing is I am holding the Alt key to paint a white polygroup like that. Okay, so this is a little bit maybe what you are used to is I am now selecting faces in essence, even though we don't allow selection of edges, faces, and vertex points in ZBrush. Okay, we're a sculpting application. You're going to be taking this to the millions of polygons. So this is the closest thing you're going to be able to get to that workflow. So you hold Alt and you just paint a temporary polygroup. Okay. In fact, I'm going to put design more like, no, I'm going to stick with that I have. So what I'm going to do now is hover over a face, hold the space bar, and I'm going to switch to inset. Okay. And what we've recently added in version 2020 is the inset now has equidistant to it. And in fact, our equidistant is very different than everyone else's equidistant. The equidistant that maybe you're used to, say, since you're using Maya, would be this standard.
Okay.
That's more the equidistant. This is a completely different algorithm, this equidistant. Okay. The standard one is going to actually shift topology and could create a bubbling of like an uneven surface.
Sure.
Our equidistant will not. It will not change the silhouette in any shape, way, or form. Okay. So now I just want to put a little inset in here. And then there you go. And then if you tap the Alt key, you can change your polygrouping. You know, I keep tapping the Alt key and I get a color that I like. Right? And then
that's just visually.
What's that?
You change the color so visually you can see it.
Yes. I want a very big difference between them because polygrouping is going to be huge. You're going to live by it, right? That's it. So if you want, sometimes it's best to look at an inset with it turned off, so I'm not looking at the divided version of the dynamic version, so you can really see what you're doing, right? Because obviously when you're looking at a divided version, we're also then dividing what you're insetting, right? So it's hard sometimes to see what your inset looks like.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying I was annoying with the Dynamite D and Shift D because I come in and out of dynamic subdivisions nonstop. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Right. So I can, do you want me to show what I just said, the difference between standard and equidistant, or we just want to move on? Like I could grab a model and show you that.
Yeah, we can move on.
All right, so now that I have two polygroups, I'm going to switch back to QMesh mode and polygroup all. Because I'm going to take advantage of my polygrouping. Okay? And what I'm going to do is click on this green, and you see it does this, right? This is a QMesh. This is not, I repeat, this is not an extrude. It's a QMesh. Okay? But I'm going to undo that, and Josh, you undo yours.
Okay.
Get back to where you were. And what I'm going to do instead first, what I want to do is, you know what? I want a little bevel there first, like that. So a little, kind of little beveling of that surface right there, right? So when I click on this, I'm holding now the Shift key. And now it doesn't do a Q mesh, it does a move. So it's moving the faces instead of Q meshing the faces. And then now I'll throw a Q mesh in, and now I got something like this. Right? And I'm going to get rid of that edge loop and that edge loop. I don't really need it anymore. Right? And I can start now getting rid of edge loops that I don't even want anymore. Right? And then now this is giving me something that looks like that. Yeah. That's clearly not what I want, right? So I'm going to use the best button ever put in ZBrush. Crease by Paul Gaboury. That's right. I've got my own button.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't. It's creased by polygroups, right?
Right.
So all I'm doing is clicking that. And then now wherever there's a polygroup change, it's now all getting creased. So you can see even on the whole piece, they're all getting creased. Okay. And then I want to clean up the corners here. So in essence, I'm going to turn this off. So I want these to be creased and these to be creased. So I'm going to hover over an edge, which is my preferred. I like to crease. And I'm going to say edge loop partial. and then just click on one of them. And then now when I do this, and then you can do this in dynamic mode or out of dynamic mode. And then this is what I'm looking more for something like that in the front of him.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this is a big thing for me, is when you guys are doing hard surface, you should never, ever, 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 ever have a piece like this where it is crisp, sharp. It doesn't look in your rooms right now, people, wherever you're at, there's nothing that has a perfect 100% right angle. It doesn't exist really, because everything's got to get manufactured. So there's molding and casting, there's roundness happening. So I creased everything, and Josh did as well, right? So what I want to do is get back a little bit of that softness I had in my hard surface. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up my dynamic subdiv, and I have my crease menu open. So right now I got dynamic subdiv on, and I've got my smooth subdivision set to 2. Okay. I'm going to change this to 4. And all that is just saying dynamically subdivide this 4 times. So it just means like you guys hitting Control D 4 times in essence, right? And this is kind of my go-to settings where I start when I'm using Zmodeler and doing this. The next thing I want to tell ZBrush is, okay, I don't want you to maintain those creases for 4 subdivision levels. Okay? Creasing in ZBrush is always 100%. There's no, you can't tell one edge to be 10% and another edge to be 50%. It's always 100% creased. Okay? So down here in the creasing menu, I'm going to go to this slider that says crease level, and I'm going to drop it to 2, and then bam, I get back the softness that I had. And then that's more what I'm looking for. It's something like that. Right? And so what I've told ZBrush is you're only allowed to maintain the crease edges for 2 subdivision levels, but I'm actually telling ZBrush to show me 4. Right? So what, in essence, what's happening in real life here, right, is when it divides up, okay, it's looking at the creases and making sure those edges don't move for 1, 2 subdivision levels, and then it just ignores them for level 3 and then 4th. I'm more of a crease kind of guy, more than adding a bunch of edge loops to give me these surfaces. It's just I can limit my topology to keep changing things however I want them to change now.
Yeah, it's a little easier to control in this way, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so let's now start adding some more elements to this and start having a little more fun with this, okay? So maybe, I don't know, maybe along a certain way I want to add some more elements to this. And I want to do this in a way maybe that's using Zmodeler with live booleans. Okay. So what I'm going to do, this is the head I have selected in my subtools. And again, this is why I'm using folders. If you remember, I started off with folders. I'm keeping everything in a nice little package group for me. Okay. So we're going to turn off solo mode, and I'm going to turn off the folder of that. And now you can see I turned off all the body really easy. And now I just want to turn these off because I want to look at just the head right now. What I'm going to do is insert Q. It honestly does not matter what the shape is. It really doesn't. Okay. And I'm just going to size this down so it's kind of tiny. Right. It can be a picture of us. It doesn't matter what the piece is. Okay. It could be a cube. It could be a torus. It's not relevant really what it is. What the relevance is, I want a new subtool.
Right.
I'm going to rename this head subs. Okay. And what I'm going to do now, because we have live booleans turned on, okay, I'm going to make sure my head has this nice smoothness looking that I want. Okay. I'm going to now select this cube subtool, and I'm going to turn it to subtractive. And you see the cube will disappear. Okay. So what I have now is a subtool selected that's just a random cube floating in space right now, but it's set to subtractive. And now what I'm going to do is let's add a little bit more to this. So I'm going to start with just a brush that's already shipping with ZBrush. Okay, guys, this is one of these. This trick I'm about to show you is one of the ones where I did this. What? Yes! and then my boss came to me and goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, this is going to be amazing." I'm telling you right now, you can live, breathe. Again, remember that non-destructive. You guys see, I'm continuing this non-destructive workflow as we're working, right? I am not welding a lot. I'm not putting a lot of pieces together still yet, because I know that's easy to do down the line.
Right.
So I'm going to click on this brush called IMM Boolean. And you see what we have here are a bunch of shapes that pop up. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to say, okay, I like that shape right there. Okay, I'm going to say, let's have symmetry on. Okay, let's make sure. Oh, let me focus this, focus. Okay, and I'm going to say, let's draw that out. Bam. Yeah. Like, there's no way I would do that with a Dynamesh. There's no way I would do that with topology. I'm instantly getting it. And then the beauty, again, non-destructive. Maybe I want to do something more like that there. You know what? I kind of like it. You'll move it around and happy mistakes. You know, maybe I want something more like that happening. Rotate it maybe, put an angle on it, right? So this is where I'm saying why when Josh asked me a question, Jay, should I put that in? No, because I have this at, you can do whatever I want, right? I can grab another one and say, okay, I want that to go down here. I'm going to draw that out. I see it happening live, and I want that happening on both sides. So you can see how quickly we're starting to look really hard surface now with some details.
Yeah.
Right?
I see it on yours. I wanted to ask you to troubleshoot me real quick. So I've got my cube. It is here. It is in invisible space.
Yep.
Is it same subtool, separate subtool? Separate, right?
It's got to be a separate subtool. Okay. And you also have to have, you don't have it turned on either.
That's why.
Eyeball's got to be on. If you don't have your eyeball on, it won't work.
There we go. I was like, something's not working, but I couldn't see it.
Right?
Perfect.
And now hit the T key, and now you're going to work in dynamic subdiv. And then these pieces.
This piece or this piece?
Yeah, no, the piece that you're drawing in, right? Because right now, when you drew out that piece, it was still kind of faceted. Because every one of these pieces are low polygon built from using Zmodeler. Right? And then you position this wherever you want. And like, yeah, you just let stuff happen. And like, it's a great way to design. Like, mess around. Cool. Right? And these are easy to make. They're not difficult to make, these brushes. They're really easy to make. If you want to make your own, they're totally easy to make. This is just one we made that ships with the application. Right? So and then there's something else that's really cool that you can do with this, right? So you're messing with this and messing around. You might go, oh, I don't know if I like this piece anymore, right? And you're not happy with it. It's really easy to change this. Okay, so here, I'll throw back my screen and I'll show this other part expanding this trick. Okay, so you can see I started adding more elements. You can even added a round piece that has a sphere in it and everything. And because we're using this, these pieces are masked off every time I draw out a new one. So I can move this wherever I want, right? And I can resize it, pull it up more, pull it down more, right? But then I can go, I don't know if that's working. It's not working for me, right? It's just, no buenos. Here is something that I love to do with this, okay? Again, non-destructive. I've got the gizmo on. If we solo this out, I've got multiple pieces now drawn, right? But you see that piece is masked and that piece is masked. Okay, so you guys remember way back now, an hour and a half ago, I don't even know now, when we were doing the copying thing and we were replacing stuff? So you can do that same thing here. So literally, that's the point of this IMM viewer along the top. Just click and drag, and we'll swap through them for you. And get to one maybe that you want. Maybe you like that one better. And then maybe let me position that a little bit more. It's got a nice little cylinder thing happening there. Maybe I want that. No, maybe I want that. This, I can't tell you how often I use this. This is cool. Why I was jumping out of my seat when we made this and making loud, obnoxious noises in the office.
Yeah, I was just kind of putting this in and playing with all the little options that you can have now. Right. And then you're just getting what you want, right? Where you want to put stuff, right? Maybe this is going to be, I remember that intake, outtake, right? Something a popular thing to use is something like this, little holes, right? Position these where you want. Okay. And then the best part about this, because that buzzword, non-destructive, these are geometrical shells.
So there is nothing stopping me at any time. Go, you know what? I don't like this piece. Even though I drew it out multiple strokes ago, I can switch to my gizmo, right? Again, mask out everything but this. Okay. Where the gizmo is positioned is important because that's how the insert mesh brush is going to be applied. So what I'm actually going to do is readjust my gizmo and align it right along that edge. And then watch, look, you can change the size of things as well this way. Okay. So what I've done is I'm snapping 2 vertex points. You see the gizmo? So if you guys have ever wanted to like put something along like an edge, this is how I can do it. I can hold the Alt key, tap on a point, and just start moving my hand. And now the cursor is looking for another point. If I just go boom to that point, that green arrow is perfectly aligned along that edge now. Okay. And what I want to do now is the blue arrow is in essence controlling the front of the surface. So in insert mesh brushes, how they're picked up, they're looked at front, right? So I want that blue arrow actually to be, again, I want to hold the Alt key and I want that blue arrow to snap that direction. So now I've got this positioned where I want. And so because I've masked out the other portions, see, I can come through and keep changing this. And now find a different piece maybe that I want to use. Maybe I want to do this now, and I'm going to make that go like there. I'm going to move that up, have it intersect, pull it up a little bit. And maybe I want to stretch it out, make it be more of a long cut. Maybe even give it an angle. Something like that. And now make it have an angle like this. And stretch it that way, right? Boom, there. I just completely changed the look of that, right? Just by swapping out the piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's cool. There's so many different little options when you get to this here. I'm just kind of playing around right now with the Boolean feature, just drawing out some of these elements and kind of using it to design and align some of these things where, you know, before, obviously with it's all these big pieces that you can't see,
right.
But you know, this is the before piece, and then I guess this is the after piece, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Right. And so look, you see how much you've changed just by throwing a couple pieces of topology at it with live booleans. And again, this is Zmodeler coming into play with it because all these pieces were made with Zmodeler as well.
Right.
Right.
I wanted to ask you one more time. You were doing that align thing. I was getting into the weeds with this. So if I wanted to put a piece kind of on this chin,
yeah,
or to kind of put a little inset or something that could do this, you were saying I can kind of like, let's pick one that would be good, I guess. Maybe we don't have to pick a specific one, but this one could be good. So I can kind of draw it first, or how would you get it in there?
Yeah, well, you're on the head right now, right? So I draw it on there first. So when you do an insert mesh brush, the first vertex point you clicked on, it's using that to align. Okay. Right? But you don't have to. You can make it align perfectly based upon your gizmo if you want to. Okay, so you can when you're drawing an insert mesh brush, there's 2 ways you can align it, either based upon the normal of the vertex point or based upon your gizmo. So for what you got, I would go grab something like near the very beginning of the brush has what I did for mine. That's the piece I used. Even further was the one I used. And then I just, because it's a hard surface, it's very planar. Right. Yeah. So I know, I used that first one, and that second one is what I used. It doesn't matter. You can no even further, more to the left, one more left. There you go. Yep. There you go. Right. And I just drew it out, and then you can see it live. This is the point. It's live updating, and I position it. And then when you draw that out, everything else is masked off now. And now you can keep repositioning, changing the size. Maybe you don't like it and you just want to cycle through things. Do whatever you want with it. And now that's aligning based upon that normal you clicked on first. Right? So you see the gizmo, it's on an angle a little bit because it's following that angle of the head of your ostrich mech. Right. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. So it's kind of aligned on this edge because that was the first point that I clicked on.
Right. But you don't have to do that. You can actually use the gizmo. You want me to show you how to do that?
Yeah. Let's figure that out.
because this we'll use it on mine in the front of the head. Okay, so let's say in the front of the head, I want to put some kind of piece in here that does this. And this is, again, you can come in here and use Zmodeler, right? We can come in here and switch to Zmodeler if we want to, and I could do something, in essence, do something like this, and then like we were doing, right? And then do this, and then I want this now to Q mesh inward, in essence, like that, right? Something like that. Right? And then there's going to be components all in here that I'm going to put. But I don't want this. I want more of a look that it's digging into the surface, right? And creating like a cavity here where it's like airflow would look like it would go through his head.
Like a foil, right? Or something. Yeah.
Right. So this goes back to picking the right feature. And again, silly chess analogy. I know I can do this really easy with this trick I just showed you. So forget trying to make the topology do it. Who cares? I don't need to. I'll make the topology do it by using another piece of topology to do it, right? So let's go back to my brush, my insert IMM Boolean, okay? And I'll just use this right now, this piece, okay? So I'm looking straight at it right now, right? And then I just draw it out, right? So now that took the normal that I selected, right? So you can see it's kind of on an angle right now. Yeah, I can position that still and maneuver it. See, there's two of them as well because it's symmetry on, right? So preferably it would be better for me not to have symmetry on. Okay, probably when I'm drawing this out, it'd make more sense to just get one like that. Okay, and then now I start having this, and now maybe I want to do this. Let's make it wider and longer now, right? And then I can play with that and say I want something like this. And maybe I want a taper, something more like this, let's say, is what I'm trying to go for. Okay, so when I drew that out, it was looking at this, right? You can see my gizmo's kind of on an angle, right? So what we can do, and then I'm going to Zmodeler this after the fact too. What we can do now is instead of doing that, I'm going to undo the one I drew out, even though it looked cool. I was enjoying myself. Okay, this gizmo. Right? There's two modes to the gizmo. There's a lock state here, and then there's an unlock state. So the unlock state means you will do whatever you want to the gizmo, and it does nothing to the mesh. It's unlocked. In essence, unlock the gizmo from the mesh. When it's in the lock state, the gizmo is now locked to the mesh, and whatever you're going to do with the gizmo, the mesh does that. Okay? So I don't ever use that icon unless I'm doing what we're doing right now, where I'm trying to tell somebody what this does. What I do is this. You see, I'm switching in and out of lock state.
Yeah.
So it's a hotkey, and it's the opposite hotkey. And the opposite hotkey in ZBrush is the Alt key. So anything that you want opposites happening, usually the Alt key is going to do it for you. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the gizmo. So I'm going to hit the icon right next to the lock. That's kind of reset rotational. And you can see now the gizmo is now perfectly sitting along the world, in essence, axis right now, right? It's perfectly aligned. Okay? Now, when I go to draw this out, again, it's looking at the normal when I draw, and then that's what I'm getting, right? So I'm going to grab, here, let's grab something a little more squared, okay? And in fact, let's just use a cube. It'll be easier to see for you guys visually to see what's going to happen here. Okay, so again, I've got my gizmo locked, right? When I draw out the surface here, right? And let me change, this is not set for live booleans. So let me change my depth, my embed, so that when I'm drawing it out, it actually goes into the surface. Okay. So you can see when I'm drawing it out, the cube is aligned right along that path right there. Right. And then when you hear gizmo on, you can see the gizmo is updated correctly to the mesh.
Right.
Okay.
And this is all part of the same subtool that you were doing all your previous Booleans on.
Yes. Yeah. So I have it all in one subtool right now
because
I'm just doing subtractives everywhere on this anyways. Right. So what I can do now, when I go to draw out, you can see how it's kind of moving. And what I'm doing now is actually tell it to snap to the gizmo orientations.
Using shift?
Shift. So when you're drawing out, you can use the shift key, and then now it's snapping to the orientation of the gizmo. So that's what I mean by there's two ways to do that, right? So you can either set your gizmo up, and I do this all the time, especially if I want something in here. Like if I wanted this piece and I want it maybe be a little different, you know, maybe I want it to use the gizmo instead.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the big difference there now, right?
Sure.
Now it's going straight through instead of going on the same angle of the head. It's doing completely different. And you can see it pretty good with the cylinder as well. Like this, like a cylinder piece.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Something like that, right? That's it. That's what I mean by you can, right, do different ways of doing this. So I would draw something like this out, right? Get what I want, say, okay, I like that. And then I start repositioning it. I start sizing it up more, start doing this kind of a thing. Okay, I kind of like what I'm getting there now, right? And then now I want to take advantage of Zmodeler. Okay, mm-hmm. So I'm going to just look at only these pieces that I'm playing with right now. And this piece that I just drew out, this piece right here, I want to change some things up. I turned off my. Okay, so what I want to do is, hold on, I turned off my local. Okay, that's on. Is tell ZBrush, let's do some Zmodeler with this. Okay, so what I want to do is maybe switch to Zmodeler. I'm going to highlight those, and let's highlight those. And I'm going to say, let's Q mesh that now, and let's just make something like that. Because then what's going to happen when we unsolo, so you start creating other elements from that same piece. Right? And then now I turn off and say, okay, let me keep adding more. I'm going to insert an edge loop here. Through here, right? And then maybe let's do along the top here. Let's do an inset by flat island. So instead of using all the selecting of the faces and everything else like that, we're using polygrouping. We're using how the polygons are sitting along the surface. So flat island in essence means all these faces right here are on the same plane island, right? There's none of them doing all of a sudden that or doing that, right? So when I switch to that and I start doing this, you see I can get a little quick, change the polygrouping, right? There, you can see it's starting to do everything along that, right? That's what I'm kind of also looking to do through here, right? And then I can do the same thing here, same thing, Q mesh, poly loop, and then I know if I do that, it goes around that direction, right? Because that orange arrow, that orange line tells, do you want the poly loop to go this way, right? Or do you want the poly loop to go this way? Right? Something like that. And then, of course, you got to start thinking about what's it going to look like divided, right? Because you're going to divide it up, and you can see it doesn't look as sweet divided now, right? Because I don't have any creasing on the stuff that
piece when you start doing it. Yeah.
And then now I do the crease by polygroups is usually where I start because it'll be the fastest way for me to get what I want, right? And then now I start doing individual creasing where I might want some individual creasing, right? So I switch to edge and I say, okay, I want that edge to be creased. I want that edge to be creased here. Okay. And it's saying it's not symmetrical. Easy solve, right? Because when I drew it out, boom, solved. Symmetrical. Mirror and weld. Mirror and weld is our friend.
So you're spending a lot of time, or some time at least, using Zmodeler on the pieces that you're booleening.
Yeah.
To get the additional stuff on top of it.
Exactly. Because now this is going to create a whole nother element to what I'm making now.
Right. Real quick, because I'm kind of getting used to this whole polygroup workflow with the Zmodeler. I've kind of got, I'll show you what I got. I've got this head that we've been working on, right? This is all the pieces that are making that shapes. I want to add a little bit more. It sounds like similar to what you're doing on this piece. So I need to, can I do it on this, or do I need to like go in and work on this piece?
No, you can absolutely do it on that piece if you want to, right? Because you can just redraw, on that, and it'll redraw it out. It's looking at the subtool you're clicking on though, so it'll probably draw it on the top. Right. So what you could do is now just make another subtool that's another negative. Right?
And it's probably easier to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, you know, you do the, so what I would do is, this is an easy way to do it. Like insert something, it doesn't matter what it is. And then remember, you have the gizmo ability to swap things out. So I insert something, I put that inserted piece where I want it in space. I insert a cube or something like that in my subtool list. I can position that where I want. And then it's a new subtool. And then I just swap it out.
So you wouldn't add like this. You would be doing another thing like here, inserting a new cube.
Yeah.
Setting
you can do what you did for sure. Yeah. Make sure it's in the same folder. You don't have it in the same folder yet, too. Yeah. And then it's a hierarchy, right? So that top subtool is your head, and then every other subtool is affecting going up the chain.
Right.
Right. And then now you can draw in that place if you want to, or I would even take that cube and just actually put it where you want it, right in by the head, like move it actually with the gizmo where you want it, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Like, and then now just swap out with the piece that you want.
Oh, I see. And just kind of say like it's
right, and then resize, position it where you want it to be. There you go. And then now just move that into place, and then you have it where you want it. That's a way to go about it as well, right? It's just combining these options together, right? And then that's the benefit of doing maybe this is you might want those to have a particular different material than the other one. So this makes it easy for you to assign a different material to just that subtool.
Right.
You want it. Right. And then that'll start kicking that design out a little bit more as well. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of the workflow is so different than like traditional modeling, but I think it does make sense when you start thinking about it, you know, in just the sort of hierarchy of how you're making a shape, right? Which is similar to traditional modeling. So it's more of just like, oh, you know, this is how I would need to make this. This is the approach of getting there rather than, I guess, the way I've been making it before.
Right.
So
yeah, you're so consumed about making sure you have topology that can support what you're trying to make there now, right?
Right.
And you don't have to worry about that. It's not, who cares?
Yeah, it's just making a shape now.
Just making a shape that you want and that looks cool and that you're happy with.
Right. That's great.
Right? And that's it. And then you're just moving along, and then I can, like that piece you're working with, I like to add a little extra bevel to it. So I will do that often with that piece you're playing with as well.
With this one?
Yeah. I'll show you something that I do with that one, because I've got it actually drawn out on mine as well. So I use the same piece that Josh is using here, right? Everybody? So I'm going to go, again, I'm just going to solo this out so you guys can just see everything that's going on here. Okay? So this is sitting inside the surface in essence, right? So I want to be able to take these pieces, right, and put maybe a little bit type of different beveling on them. So I'm going to switch to Zmodeler. Okay. And in here, I'm going to say insert edge. But instead of one edge, I'm going to do multiple edge loops. Okay. And there's many things you guys can do with this. All right. You can turn on something like interaction. Okay. And then you guys can do stuff like I can do this and start doing something like that. And now I can just tap, tap, tap kind of a thing, right? Something like that as well.
How did you do the tap, tap, tap thing?
Yeah, so Zmodeler stores things.
Okay.
So it stores the poly grouping that you're using. It stores the last action that you made. So I made this action like this. And I just did that like that. So that was my last action. So when I tap, it just does it now to every other cylinder. Wherever I tap, because they're different shells, right? They're not the same shell. I don't know why that one's destroyed. Oh,
yeah, they're whacked out.
Oh, I did something to it. It's all whacked out. Okay, so then you can see that's repeating across the board. So then when I turn on the dynamics, you got an edge right there now, right? And then when you come back, that edge
It's affecting the.
and start being used.
Oh,
See
interesting.
right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So sometimes what I will do is I'll do my own kind of just custom one. And instead of doing this elevation thing, I'll do multiple edge loops and come here and turn this down to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it's only giving me 1 edge loop. And when I click in here, that edge loop is dead center of these cylinders. Except for that one's a disaster. I need to replace that. Right? And then I can go here, and then there's a quarter. And then, you can keep going closer and closer if you want to, right? To wherever you want to go.
I was going to ask you, and this is more kind of the basics, but as I'm getting used to this, how you quickly took the polygroups and got the blue polygroup versus the yellow polygroup, just so you can really quickly isolate those.
So, in essence, do you mean when it's making the yellow? How am I making the yellow so quick like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you had blue. Yeah, mine are yellow, so yours are blue.
Yeah. So that's in this feature. When you're using multiple edge loops, we automatically create a new polygroup. But you can turn it off. So right here it says alternate polygroups, same polygroup, or keep, right? So you can do either option here on the bottom. So by default, it's always creating a new polygroup. But I don't have to do that. I can say keep polygroups, and it just creates another edge. See? It doesn't change the polygrouping.
I think I missed that. Can you? Here,
Yep.
how about I have it up here.
Okay.
So
space bar. Yeah. So undo that. Hold the space bar. Switch to multiple edge loops instead of a single. Take the slider and change it to 1. The maxi says 8 right now. Yeah. Just keep your hand on the space bar. Now click and drag that over. Drag it over to 1. Now it's on 1. And now just tap in your cylinders.
I see.
And there you go.
Gotcha.
And if you don't want that polygroup to actually change, then you turn on the other options.
And how did you add that middle polygroup in between these, I guess? Was that just making this a 3?
Yeah. So because if you make that more, you're going to get more spans in the middle, and then you'll get more polygroups.
Got it.
Right? Because what we want to do, so turn back, go back to that, and then hover over the edge. Okay, now click on, instead of the slider, click to the button to the left. Yeah. Yep, click on that one. Now go back to your cylinder. Click, and now just drag up and down. See? Now just keep dragging up and down. And what it's doing is going to make 2 polygroups. Right? If you're thinking about this, if you stop now and you switch to Q mesh, right? And then you say, oh, I want a repeating pattern on this kind of a thing. And now you go to Q mesh, polygroup all, and then only those, whatever blue one you click on, those are the ones that move. So Q meshing, you can see, has a welding ability. So you're welding to the other things.
Right.
So this is where you might switch to an extrude instead of a Q mesh.
Right. Okay. And then now you said if I just tap, oh god.
Yeah, well, it's going to do only the last action. So if you want,
I want to do 1, I go tap 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 tap, and then go.
Yeah, and then now you do the Q mesh and go tap tap tap. Well, you wouldn't even need to, because it's the same polygroups, right? So you would go put all those edge loops that you want, because these are separate shells, so it can't go across the separate shells.
Do I have to tap on the polygroup?
Yeah, just tap on the edge, and it'll just keep. And then because it's got a polygroup, your Q meshings only need 1, because now they all share the same polygroups, right? And then there you go. And then it's happening to all of them. And if you tap the Alt key, you can change those polygroupings as you're doing it.
Got it. And then that's going to affect what this is.
And then that's going to affect the shape and create that.
Cool.
Right? You just they're really close to each other right now. So
yeah, right now they're not working for what we want, but that's cool. Thank you.
But that's, in essence, I start to do this kind of stuff. I'll lay stuff down, and then I'll start editing the pieces with Zmodeler, so I can start really pushing my design that I'm trying to go for. Right? Hopefully that makes sense to everybody watching, and they're getting what I'm laying down right now. Okay, so let's move on and look at using, like, I'm not going to be able to do the whole head, but you guys can see where I'm starting to go with this, how I'll start putting the head in and blah, blah, blah. So let's go back to looking at, okay, what if I want to now just take the head that we started with, like this, right? And it was the unclean version, right? It was the version that we had that was like the Dynamesh, where it's not so clean, like it's not so perfectly clean, like this version, okay? And I just want to straight up just make new topology, and I want to make it really low polygon, okay? So instead of using the ZBrush, I want to hand build some topology here. Okay. So I need to retopologize, in essence, what I'm going to do. So I want to first quickly highlight a little bit what you can do here. So I'm just going to grab a plane real fast here, like this. And I'm going to go less polygon. So let me just change my initialize. This is kind of me doing a little teaching show and tell right now, more than anything. Let's go less than that. Okay. We'll make this a mesh. Okay, so what we've added, sound effects are so crucial. Okay, funny, we gave the ability to do an extruded edge like you've been able to do in other applications, of course. Okay.
Right. But right now you're just on a plane or a cube?
Just take a plane, and so you can maybe get used to using this, and then we're going to use it on the mesh. And I'll show you combining all this, because I want everyone to understand even what you can do with this and understand the difference between planar angle, right angles, edge looping, edge loops, poly loops. What the heck does all that mean? Okay. So right out the gate, okay, I have a single edge ability. So if I do this, I extrude an edge now. And you can see it's a free moving edge. I can just freely move this however I want, right? And you can see it's even not staying planed along the original plane, right? So this is why there are options, okay? And so by default, you can see there's a free angle and a free side, and then there's the free move, right? So I want to start first with looking at, okay, do you want a single edge? Do you want an edge loop? Or do you want a poly loop? Okay? So instead of me doing this and then going, oh, you know what, I didn't want that. I want this, and I want an edge loop, and then I get all of them, right? Or I want this. No, I want a poly loop, and it goes around now the whole thing. That's the difference between the edge loop. The edge loop stops because this angle shift is 90 degrees. So only these edges move with edge loop, right? That's it. And then with poly loop, it goes all, it looks at the whole loop. It sees the loop with topology, and that's why I'm getting this to happen. Okay? But I personally don't ever switch these ever. Never. Okay? When I'm working, right, like this, I'm doing this. I'm literally switching between them all on the fly.
How are you doing that?
Right? So, opposite key in ZBrush world?
Sure.
Alt. Right? So, tapping the Alt key switches to edge loop. Tapping it again switches back to a single. Holding the Alt key will switch to poly loop. So what it's doing is actually it's coming over here and see it's switching through the buttons for you on the fly. Right? So if you start with this, if you notice when I do this and then tap the Alt key, if I spacebar, see now it's sitting on edge loop. It did it for me, right? So we wanted to find a way to make this quick, to switch between them. Because when I'm building from scratch, I don't want to have to keep going into the menus, right? I want to be able to switch between them. So that's important to understand. Okay, so that's one thing to understand. Okay, the next thing now to understand is obviously when I was doing this, like I don't want this. Like this is not what we want, right? Okay, I want just give me straight off, right off this, right? Give me just straight off this where I want to go, right? So in essence, I want not a free angle, I want a planar angle, right? That's what I want. I want to be able to plane across this, okay? So now when I do this, you see it's going straight across, and I know that's sitting on the same plane because it's plane. If I now go to perpendicular angle, I know now it's going 90-degree perpendicular, right? So now I'm making a right angle, right? So you have either free, planar, and perpendicular. And so the next things that come into play are your free sides, extended sides, parallel sides, and taper sides. So right now I have it in free sides. Okay, so what it means is when I'm doing this and I'm moving my hand, I'm freely still able to move. I'm able to move this edge and this edge freely because that's what those are the new edges being made. So that's what it means by those edges freeing up. Okay, if I want to just turn on extended sides, then that's it. See? It's just going to extend it. And every time now I draw out, it's perpendicular. right? So what I want to be able to do is switch between planar, perpendicular, and free angle. See, I'm actually switching. That's planar. That's perpendicular.
And what is the hotkey to switch with that one? Alt as well?
Tapping the shift key now.
Shift key, okay.
Shift key. So you just draw it out and see right now, and look in the top left corner of my ZBrush. Okay, it just went away. Okay, so look up here, literally above the home page button. Okay. See, and when I tap, see it's switching to planar.
Switch to planar, switch to free, switch to perpendicular.
Yep. We're going to tell you on that top. In essence, this is in essence, you know, for your Maya world, this is in essence like the command line in Maya, in essence, if you want to think about it in that sense. Okay, so now you guys have Alt to switch between single edge, edge loop, poly loop. You now got Shift to switch between, you know, planar, perpendicular, freely doing it. And then the last thing to do is I don't want a single row. I want 5 rows. Okay, so when I extrude out, see, I'm getting 5 rows. Right, so if we switch this back to a single, see, I'm getting 5. And now I say, let's do this. And see, now those all just snapped. Those are all snapped together now. So this has automatic and snapping ability to it as well. Once it gets close to vertex points, we're going to see it and go, boom, snap it. Okay, so I've designated how many spans do I want to cross when I'm pulling on the edges, right?
Where are you defining the spans? Is that in
the number rows? So num rows.
Number rows, got it. So I have number rows, but it says 5, but I'm only getting 1.
So what you might have done, what you might have done is
pulling it out.
I'm going to show you now. So well, you don't have it selected actually. Go back to you. Okay, undo, and you can see you just repeated the same action. Built-in feature of Zmodeler, right? Hold down the space bar and go and click on num rows. You don't have num rows turned on. Just
it's a selection. It's not a bar. I see.
Yeah, no, you got to highlight it and tell ZBrush that that's what you want to do. There you go.
Right. Okay. And then so you could do it this way or this way or.
Yep. And then if you want that, boom, you tap poly loop. Yeah. See, so you can see our goal was, can we get you even out of the menu as much as possible? Right. And just try to move as fast as you possibly can. And we're going to put this all in action in a second here. I just wanted to run through the options first. Okay. And then so you just repeated everything.
Right.
So every tap, you're going to repeat those same number of rows, whatever direction you're going now.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so the last thing that you're going to want to do, and you're going to see this when we start retopologizing things too, is when I'm doing this, I actually can, on the fly, change the number of spans that I want.
Okay.
I don't have to use the slider if I don't want to. Okay, so if you look, see, mine's now sitting at 2. Here, see, mine's sitting at 2 now. So you can put, I want 17 for whatever reason. There's 17. Right? But if that's not what I want, when you click, since I have this active, like my hand's off the keyboard, right? This is important. Now, if you just hold control and then just move back and forth, we'll change the spans. So as we're moving the slider right now is what we're doing.
Right.
And this will come in handy once we start putting this on a surface. It's pretty sensitive to your hand movements with a pen because, you know, a little movement, a lot of slider movement.
Right.
Okay, so there's your main, in essence, shortcuts to cycle through all of these options. All right, so far good? Makes sense? Okay, so now let's go put them in action, okay, and let's rebuild something. Okay, so I'm going to rebuild this head. Unless I'm trying to think, maybe I can pull something that you can rebuild with you as well, but we'll just go with this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need a piece of topology, okay? Because I want to rebuild something. So I'm going to say, let's just do this. I'm going to say brush, insert, and I'm going to select this IMM primitives with the H at the end of it, as in half. And there's an amazing thing you can do with this that I have to show too. But let's get through the Zmodeler thing and then we'll move on. How are we doing with the time? Oh, we're only
about 40 minutes.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to select, there's 2 of them. There's one that says IMM primitives, and there's one that says IMM primitives H. I'm going to select the H one because what's in this at the very end is a single polygon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I have symmetry on. I'm going to go until they meet, and then I'm just going to draw out a plane. And then there's my plane.
Are you caring about where it is, the orientation, if it's shift, snap?
Well, it's going to take on the orientation of what I drew out on, right? So it's taking this plane for me. It's taking this, right? Which is actually beneficial for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what I want to do now is I'm going to split this off. So because it's masked, I'm just going to use unmasked points. And so now this plane is its own piece of topology.
What was the unmasked point button? I don't know if I've used that before.
So in split, there's unmasked points, and then there's split masked points. So
I see.
You can split based upon masking. So like if you masked off a couple pieces and then told to split unmasked, then the unmasked parts become their own subtool. If you click masked points, then the masked vert meshes become their own subtool.
Awesome.
So it's a really quick way of splitting stuff off. Okay, so now what we have here is we have this plane just sitting here in Space-Rooney, right? So you can see, I'll pull it out a little bit so you guys can see it. And what I want to do is now set up my Zmodeler brush for the purpose of remeshing, in essence. I want to build, and then you can use this just to build stuff too. But I, in essence, want to remake the head, but I want to remake the head brand new with as low polygon as I possibly can. Okay? So let's, in Zmodeler now, let's select our Zmodeler brush, B, Z, and then M. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this brush up. We ship a brush in Lightbox with this already set up, but I'm just going to set it up so you guys can see what I do. Because if I'm going to do this, this is what I do. I go over my head edge, and I make sure I have extrude on. Okay? And instead of having free move, I turn on snap to surface.
Got it.
By default, this is what you guys would have by default. Okay, this is the default settings now that you're looking at now, right? So I would turn on snap to surface. Okay, I know I'm going to want extended sides, and then I'm going to switch between planaring and perpendicular, whatever, right? Or, I'll just keep it on free size. Forget it. I'm going to keep it a default and snap to surface. The next thing I'm going to do is go to a point. And right now you see it says move points, space bar, and I want you to turn on now snap to surface for that.
Got it.
Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over a face, space bar, and I'm going to say do nothing.
Just in general, do nothing.
Yeah, so that means there is no polygon action now. That's what do nothing means. I don't want to accidentally do a Q mesh while I'm doing this. Because I'm dealing with a plain piece of topology right now, right? So what this I've done now is I can tell ZBrush, okay, with a little bit of a brush size, I can move points around, right? And then they're going to snap to the surface now. So this is like sitting on the surface. So it's really hard to see, right? But if I, two ways, you can either turn on transparency and you can see what you're making, right? So you can have ghost on or off. Okay? And then now when I do an extrusion, see that's snapping to the surface. Okay, I personally do this a different way.
Okay.
Personally. Okay, so there's either this way with ghost, with transparency turning on. So in essence, the subtool that I'm drawing on top of is just in transparent mode, so I can see the faces that I'm actually making, right? Because it's just a single plane, so the head topology is blocking it a little bit, right? I prefer using a new feature. So going back into our handy dandy, here, let me close some stuff up so it's not such a cockpit looking at you. We're not pilots, although we are. We're piloting through ZBrush right now. Take a water break on that one, people. Enjoy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on dynamic subdiv. And what that's going to do is make it look like ridiculousness, right? It's like, this is crazy. So in essence, the vertex points are actually sitting way out here, right? In no man's land. So what I'm going to tell ZBrush to do is have no smoothness, because by default, it's going to have a smoothness of 2. So I'm going to turn it to 0. So we're back to just looking again at this, right? And what I'm going to do now is use thickness. And what that automatically does is give us thickness. right? And you can now clearly see where I'm sitting in space.
Sure.
Right, and it's a thickness. So when you turn off dynamic, it's not there. We're giving you guys a reference, a look of what this would look like if there was thickness, and we're automatically adding it. So this is a great way to work. So in essence, now in ZBrush, you can work with plain surfaces, and with one slider, boom, give it thickness if you want it. Right? So I prefer working this way because now when I come over this edge, I can come down here and say, okay, I want that point to sit there. And now I want this point to sit right there. Okay. And now you just start drawing out your edges where you want them. And then you can visually see where everything is going.
Awesome. I've followed along with some of that. I'm having a little issue here. It doesn't seem to stick to the surface. Or is it sticking to the surface, but I can go past it?
Yeah, well, you'll be able to, if you're extruding past, you can extrude past it. It's not going to stop. And right now you have also the rows turned on.
So just do that one.
Do that one, and then set the top one above that to the first button too, just as a default.
This one.
Yeah. So now you're back in default mode.
Okay.
And there you go. It's once you go past, right, because your edge is past the surface. So now there's nothing to stick to. There's nothing to stick to. Right. So it doesn't have the ability to just stop at the surface. So then and then now you just keep drawing out the edges that you want, and then it's snapping to what you want. And then you use the point to move, and then the points are going to be snapping. And you see now those 2 points just snap together for you. You're going to need to go with a little bit bigger brush size, though. You're like sitting at, I think, draw size 1 or something.
What does the brush size do when I'm in? What is that?
Because when you're moving a point, you need to have a little bit of a brush size so it knows to grab that vertex point.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was trying to figure out how to move them.
Yeah, and then because you have snap on, that point's going to keep snapping to the subtools below it.
Gotcha. So I could also just start a little easier here.
Exactly. Right? And then there you go. Yep.
I don't think my thing is.
That's it. And then you add more thickness if you can't tell, you can't see more. But in essence, obviously, the thickness doesn't exist in real life.
It's not actually there.
Yeah. But this is why I usually go with a little bit of thickness, so I start hiding the piece that I'm building on top of.
Yeah, it's a little easier to see it.
It's easier to see. You can really see, because who cares how thick it is? You're going to turn the thickness off, and you're going to have a closed surface eventually.
Right.
And then that's it. This is pretty much what I do when I'm trying to maybe build something where I've used something like a Dynamesh and it's really rough, and now I just want to build new low topology on top of it. Right? And then that's it. This is kind of a workflow that you can do. And then once those points get close to each other, they automatically snap. It's got its own snapping ability to it. And then that's it. And now you're free off and going now. Yeah.
You can
yeah, I probably would, that back one, it's going to snap to that back one, right? So it just snapped to that back one there. Yeah. And then now you'll need to make the face up top. So this is where what you do, turn it off, and then just move the points. They'll snap. And turn off thickness might be easier for you. There.
Just kind of do it like this.
Yeah.
Oh, because the thickness that's like hard to see it when it's like that.
It might make it harder for you to see at this point. So you turn it on and off and go about. Now your brush size, you might want to go. Yeah. It's sitting way out in space, so I'd probably go with a different angle.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's way out there.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, I can definitely play around with this.
So this is, in essence, a way you can build on top of something. But, of course, you can just build from scratch now, right? You can just take anything you want and do the extrusions that you want to do.
Just start making shapes as you
doing whatever you want. And then masking and moving with Gizmo, combine all that stuff now that we were talking about. So and some people prefer, even that blocking out that we were talking about, you could, like you said, just use this and not use Dynamesh and just start with a simple shape and start blocking it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I was doing like even my head, and if I wanted, instead of doing this the way I'm doing this, another way would be, okay, so this is the finished one, and here, this one we don't need anymore. Okay, I could also just do this. I could just say, all right, let me just Let me recenter this. And let me take a
Sure.
cube like this, right? And I don't want symmetry on. Okay, and then these cones, make it be just six faces. And then now this is now just going to use transparency. And now I'm literally just saying, okay, I want those there. I want a point there. Okay, this needs to come down. And I want these. And you see, I'm using this unmasking ability. See, I never do this anymore. This as much, you know, the inversing thing. Like here, we'll put it on something with a little more volume to it. I do not do this anymore as much. This and then that. I don't do that hardly at all anymore. I do this now. Boom, same thing. Right. I have one less step. Instead of doing this, holding control and tapping, I'm just holding control and my fingers off the keyboard and then holding down Alt. And now that's what I want. So in essence, that's how I'm working with this gizmo. I'm saying, okay, I don't want a Dynamesh. Let's turn that off. So I don't accidentally do that. Now I just say, okay, I need another piece. So I just need QMesh this, single poly. Like this is also a way I will start building the pieces. Like get this volume right first, and then look at all the profiles. And then say, okay, this one just needs to come down now, and then down. And then I'm going to start using Zmodeler to do the rest of the detailing. That's kind of what we've already been doing. Right? And then I say, okay, I need another edge loop right here. Right? So then I say insert an edge loop. Let's say single. I got an edge loop there, and then now I just position this where I want it. Boom. Right? And then I come to the top, and then now I start working symmetrically, and then I just start shaping this.
Yeah, so I think this edition for me is a big change because I like to kind of work slowly and build up a shape. I like the clip curve stuff quite a bit, and I like the live booleans is a really great way to kind of get some cool shapes in and start designing. And I think is obviously a great way to add like finishing details too, for sure. But I like this new extrude thing because this is, first off, to just quickly retopologize something. I think it's very good for that too. But yeah, I think this is cool, man.
Yeah,
I can definitely see how it's like, okay, I can start pulling this into my workflow as far as like how I might want to rebuild a shape or something. You know, I had chatted with you guys before on like a previous stream, and was like, you know, I use a lot of other things. Like I use another, I might use Maya, or I might use something else. But I could see now how even with existing projects, like I could jump in and just kind of start with a specific, like just start remaking shapes or cleaning up shapes in a much different way.
Yep.
I think this is the one I showed you guys before, but like this is the project I had worked on, which I like the general sculpt of what I have for this. But now it's like I would want to clean this up. But now with the retop stuff in the extrusion specifically, like I could come out and just make individual small pieces, which would be a lot easier, I think, than trying to do that in Maya, I think.
Yep. And then the scribe lining that you're doing, right? There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways to do that in ZBrush. Right? We could probably end with that and show people. I can show them the real quick ways, but before we even get it, I want to show something else too with a ray mesh.
Yeah, let's see it.
Because this to me, I'll be honest with you, when we made a ray mesh, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I couldn't get away from me and my pipeline for what I like to do a lot. Now with Live Boolean, every single hard surface mesh I made that I showed you guys all have a ray mesh in them. All of them. Every single one. Because there's so much designing element that you guys can do with this. Okay. So if I want to start having some kind of, say, repeating pattern in here, and I want to kind of control it a little bit and do some different stuff with it, there's a lot I'm going to be able to do. So let's look at this and say, I want to put some kind of vents kind of thing now coming down the front of the head, let's just say. Okay. So I'm going to insert a cube. Good enough. Okay. There's my cube, massive, gigantic, enormous cube. I'm going to replace it because I want that type of cube. I want just a very, very low polygon. And I'm going to position this kind of like where I want this to go. Let's say that. You got to whistle while you work. Do, 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 do. Okay, and this is why I become a very big fan of array mesh. In a minute here, I'm going to show you what I really like about this. Okay, so right now, this is sitting above all the Boolean stuff that I'm doing, cutting out, right? So I need to move it below so it shows up the way I want it to show up. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use Zmodeler now to just quickly give myself a very quick design. So I'm going to crease everything here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to do now some of the stuff we talked about. I'm going to say, you know what? Let's insert multiple edge loops. I'm going to change the poly grouping up. I'm going to do something like that. Then I'm going to Q mesh poly loop. And then I'm going to do this, but I'm actually going to pull it out so it does something more like that. Okay. And okay, I like what I got so far. I'm going to turn on dynamic, right? Because I want to see again, what does this look like when I divide up, right? Because that's going to be important to me. So I'm going to mirror and weld it so I got a little bit more topology there. Okay. I'm going to copy this, cube it, crease it. Sounds like the old game. Pop it. Stop it. Hear that? Totally what it sounds like right now. So I'm just adding another little cool little, just a little nubbin element that I want to put in this. All right. And then I'm going to, again, I'm just designing freely here. And it's okay. I'm going to add another edge loop here. Let's do that. This comes down like that. And so now I have something like that. Let's mirror and weld that so I got it on both sides. And for giggles, let's also now do, here's something important. Okay. So when you guys are creating an edge loop with the Zmodeler, to see how the edge, see, I'm clicking, see how it, as I'm getting closer to the corner, see how it's taking on the corner topology? And see how I'm getting closer to the middle, see it's trying to straighten it out a little bit more? That's important. So where you click is going to become important. So what I can actually do is tell ZBrush, no, keep it perfectly parallel to the middle edge. So I can come out here like this, and it's parallel, or the opposite, I can keep it parallel and have that angle if I want to as well. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm clicking here, which is closer to this edge, and if you hold the shift key, we constrain it now to the closest edge you clicked to. Okay? If I click closer to this edge and hold the shift key, it's constraining closer to that. Okay, so I just want to have it straight, so I'm going to do something like this. Let's say something like that. And I'm going to Q mesh this. I just want to put a little bit something there, something a little different. We'll do that. And then let me look at that smooth. I'm going to go ahead and crease all. And you know what? Darn it, I can't help myself. I got to stop. I got to stop. I got to stop. Hey, whatever. Some kind of cool little design element in here, right? I can see stuff going in my mind right now, right? And so, see, I got this going for me. So this is where I love array mesh. Is this even going to work? I want to make a venting thing that's repeating. I have no idea if this is going to work. And you think about the traditional way, you're going to build something, and then you're building all of it, and then you're like, oh, wait, that's not working right. And then you spend whatever amount of time. So you can see I'm talking to you guys, and I didn't spend a lot of time with this. And now I can see, is that even going to work? I don't know. So this is why I love array mesh. I'm going to turn on array mesh. Okay. And I'm going to say, I don't even know how many I want. I'm going to say 8. Okay. I'm just going to say repeat 8 times. Nothing happens. Woo! Great feature, Paul. Fabulous. You're so good at this. What's happening is they're all repeating right now in the same area. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to control the offset here. Right. So I want to control my offset along the Z, right? So when I go along the Z, you can see they start repeating over and over and over and over and over again, right? So I got a Z repeating. There's going to go straight across. So obviously I would also need a Y to make them have an angle, right? So I'm using the sliders. I personally don't use the slider. I personally prefer to turn this transpose option on over here. And what that does, I saw Josh is a big transpose guy still.
Yep.
is it turns your transpose line actually into the GUI for array mesh. So you see right here, it says repeat. I can say, I don't know, is that enough? Maybe I want that many. No, maybe I want less. Right? This is what I mean by I'm designing on the fly based upon, okay, I like that. And then I'm switching, I'm in move mode, right? So move mode is offset. Scale is scale. Rotate is rotate. Right? So because I'm in the transpose, I can say, okay, Y, and I'm in move mode, so I'm just going to move them up, and I want something more like that. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to come out of transpose, and watch this. I can use, in essence, the gizmo to even move it in space. So maybe I want to do something more like that. And then now go back into transpose. So I'm literally swapping between these modes, right, to get what I want. And then now I'm going to say, go back into gizmo and say, let's put a little bit different rotation on these maybe, and pull it up a little bit more on the surface. Maybe a little bit more rotation like that. And now I'm like, okay, that's looking pretty cool, but there's a taper here. No problem. You go to scale, and you got the ability, right, to taper over if you want to, right? So I'm in scale mode. I can taper these out.
That's very cool.
And then now that's kind of what I'm looking for, right? I want that. And then at any point in time, here's the best part. Let me play with this a little more. I don't like what's happening here. Let's play with this a little bit more. This is the only piece of topology that I'm actually playing with. So
so you can continue to design too if you wanted.
Yeah. This is what I love about array mesh. This is what I love about it. Right? That to me makes maybe a little cooler. I kind of maybe like that. Maybe I don't want this. Maybe I don't want these elements in it anymore. Maybe, I'm not sure I want, here's the thing again, selecting out. Maybe I'll only want it on one side. I don't know until I do it. But I have, because of array mesh, I have the freedom to experiment non-destructively, right? And go at it. This is, I use array mesh all the time. And of course, it's going to work with some of the stuff that we've been doing, right? With live Boolean. So like if I insert, we'll just throw it for the sake of, we're running out of time, right? Take this, and this is how I start doing repeating patterns. And then I don't even know how many repeating patterns I want. And I start doing something like this and say this. Okay, I want to do some kind of repeating pattern here. That's a negative. There's that. And now I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know what I want. I go to my array mesh, turn that on. Okay, I'm going to turn on my transpose. And then I'm going to say, okay, I want them to be this far apart. And I want how many? Fit. And then I say, okay, maybe switching back to the gizmo. Now let me just move them in the world space and see what I get. I would have never gotten there topology-wise.
Right.
And again, the key point I'm trying to make here, everybody, is I'm not messing with the main head's topology. That's the beauty of this whole workflow. Maybe put them on an angle. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. It's your world. I'm just trying to live in it. Right? So this is why I really love array mesh. It's really become a go-to staple for me in my hard surface stuff. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fast and easy way to get a lot of those details, to be able to experiment with them, to continue to be able to design with them.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, watch this trick. So here, I'm going to quick save this real quick. So if I need to pull this back up. And we're saving. All right. So this is, everyone can load this. So Josh, you might want to save if you want to follow me along with this. I'll show you a trick that I like to do with array mesh. That's going to get me double symmetry. Okay. So if you want to save out what you're doing, just in case you ever want to go back to it after we're done this. So open up Lightbox, and you guys all follow along if you want to. Go ahead. Follow along. Okay. So I want to go in projects. Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually, I want to close this one out. Hold on. I want to start with this guy. Hold on. I want to I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to start where
Okay.
some people could be also. I'm just going to start completely fresh. Restart me. Okay, so in the projects, you're going to have a bunch of different things here, okay? So there's like a demo project here, right? So right here, there's a quick load mech, right? So I'm going to click on that and load that up. Okay, so this is just a hard surface piece that was made inside of ZBrush, right? But what's going on here is if we select this leg, you can see only one of the legs have a polygroup. The other one has nothing, right? And what this gives you the ability to do now is I can now work locally and have double symmetry happening. So I've got symmetry here and here, right? So whatever changes I make here, they're going to happen over here at the same time. Okay, make sense? So what we're doing here is, in essence, it's an array mesh that's happening. Okay, so if you select this leg, right, you select that leg, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from scratch to show you how this trick actually works. Okay, so we're going to delete the array mesh that we have. So now there's no leg on the other side.
Right.
Okay, and then I'm just going to turn on array mesh now. And in essence, what that's doing is by default, it's duplicating the leg on the one side. Right? And when I go now to look at this, if we go back into what I'm saying, transpose, right? And I turn on the transpose, you can see this snaps to the center of the leg. Right? Because this has now become the GUI of array mesh, in essence. Okay? And then so if I'm moving this, you see I get another leg. Because I'm in move mode along the top, right? So as I'm doing this, I'm getting this. Right? So we're not going to be able to do, yes, there, it's perfect. There's no way we will visually be able to do it, so I'm going to use array mesh to do this for me. Okay? And this is why I'm turning on this transpose option, so you guys can also visually see what's going to happen. All right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell ZBrush to reset this, right? And you see nothing happens. It's just, okay, whip-de-doo, nothing happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell ZBrush, hey, where this leg is in space, okay, I want you to lock that position, and I want you to lock even the size, okay? These two buttons, so they lock it and changes the way array mesh will work with it, okay? So now that this is locked, right, when I go to reset, you see what happens. The transpose line moved. And what's happening is the pivot point moved back to the center of the world, right? So that's what the reset's doing. So there's a yellow circle here. That's actually your pivot point, which are these sliders right here. Okay? And what I want to do now is tell ZBrush, okay, I've reset it. And now what I want you to do is mirror across the X. And then that's it. And then that's it. And then so if you think about this, you guys, you think about even things like when we were using like the clip curves, right? These are symmetrical, right? So technically I can now use this and it's going to happen on both sides for me, even though it's two different legs, right? I don't run into, this is also clipping this leg to nothingness, right? So it opens up all this freedom for us. And then of course, this is a way of using array mesh more to do your mirroring over and keeping a kind of double symmetry thing happening.
Yeah, that's great. It's a super useful thing because there's so many hard surface things like this is a good example of the object is off center, but it's a perfectly mirrored thing. You can, it's an easy way to just kind of add that to that. That's great.
Exactly. Right. So I wanted to talk, but why we still have some time here, some scribe line stuff.
Yeah, let's talk that real quick.
So I'm just gonna do it on like a simple mesh. I'm gonna show you guys a couple techniques that you guys can use. Okay. So I'm just grabbing a polysphere. If you want to follow along, it's easy to do, or if you want me to just do show and tell since we're running low on time.
Hey, go ahead. I'll try to follow, but you just, yeah, since we got 9 minutes, you go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to turn on poly grouping. All right. And I'm going to select slice curve. So this does this, right? Where we can slice through things, right? And this is creating, look at poly grouping becoming our friend, right? So what happens, how this works is when you slice through a complete polygroup, this polygroup stays the same, and now this one just changed, right? The red one didn't change because I didn't have the curve go all the way through, okay? And so what I'm going to do is use that ability. And what I'm going to do is turn on my handy dandy old trusty friend, which is B radius. And what that actually does is makes two slices. And those slices are dependent upon the actual, here, I think this material is a little rough to make for you guys to see it, right? It's making two slices, right? And then so now if I do something like this, and I do something like this, because I'm starting in that red with the slice, this doesn't change polygroup. See, it's all still one. Right? So in essence, what I have here is that now. Right? And so this is what I have. So it's just simple. I show this mesh part of it. Come over here to my edge loops. I'm going to say crisp, and I'm going to say negative a little bit, edge loop in. Now let's go a little bit more, edge loop in, and then there you go. Right? If you turn crisp off, then it'll have a little bit of a beveling to it, right? I like using the crisp and then just find the gap that I want, and then there you go. But this is one way that you can go about doing it, right? This is obviously changing your topology, making it triangulated and things like that, right? So this is one way to do it. Another way to do it, go backwards. This one will keep our subdivision levels, right? Because again, depending on your scenario, that one you can't keep your subdivision levels. This one I'm about to show you, you can keep your subdivision levels, okay? So depending on where you are and what you're doing in the world of what you got. So me personally, I really love to use the chisel brushes. Okay, I'm a big fan of these brushes. Okay, they look really cool and they look like a scribe line, right? So I'm not going to have it do any material, but just paints like this, right? So what I want to do now is tell ZBrush, okay, I want to just start scribing lining stuff in here, right? Here's the problem. When you do this, you get that. Right? So what I can do is, with this brush, tell ZBrush, okay, this particular mesh, right, it has a state right now when it's just a perfect sphere. So I'm going to come over here to my morph target and store morph target. And now what I get is when I do this and this, you get perfection in the middle. And now adding to this to make it be a little more hard surface, in the stroke and under lazy mouse, this is turned on. Okay. I'm also going to turn up this lazy snap. Okay. And because lazy mouse is on, I can now do stuff like this. Right. I'm making exact positions where I want them. Right. So I'm clicking and then holding the shift key. Right. Right now I'm not holding the shift key. So I click, hold the shift key, and now I can snap and get the angles. I can see the angle slider and go through there. Right. And then what also has happened is if this end right here that I ended on, I can click and continue moving this if I want to. So right now I was using my pen, right? So what happens to us when we're doing this is we're using pressure sensitivity, right? Like this. Right? So it's changing the size and everything. So what I would probably do if I'm going to do this trick, I would go to my brush palette and the tablet pressure, see where the size, it's saying allow the size to change with pressure. I'm pretty much just going to turn that off. So, so that way, besides just being able to do something like this, you can draw, right? Stop, come back, and then say, okay, I want to continue from there, and then continue on. Right? So you can keep going around the surface And see, you can't even tell that that was 2 strokes right there. It just was a
Right.
change in plane. See? So it doesn't matter. I can keep rotating. And what's doing that is this right here, this lazy snap is what's doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it works for me. I've used lazy snap before just to in long strokes to try to pick up the same stroke where you have to rotate around the model or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I had never thought about it using it with lines like this.
Okay. Is my interface cut off on your stream, or is it just me?
No.
Okay. All right. So here's another way. Okay. Obviously, what's new to ZBrush is your thick skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can just straight up just use inflate, right? And then say, okay, let's turn on thick skin, and then you set your thickness that you want, and then start working on this, right? And then now this is too bright now. Let's get something a little bit better. So now when I'm doing this, here, let's use clay buildup. There's a point, right, where it's going to stop.
Right.
Right. And then of course you can inward
as
well. So obviously if you train this to a subtractive, you guys can just do stuff like this, like make your own brushes. Do this. And then the secondary thing that you guys can do is if you guys turn your thick skin to 0, okay, you can actually erase what you did.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. And just get rid of everything I did thick skin wise. There it's gone. So this is nice to be able to do this as well.
Yeah, I like that idea to be able to ideate with it too. Even if it's like maybe I'm just going to spend some time designing and figure out what they're going to be before I like really commit to them. Because then you can erase them or, almost do it one by one if you wanted to like sketch it out first and then go for like a nice clean one.
So we'll go real quick another way that this is another one of those yes for me. Okay.
All right.
So I'm just going to take a cube. I'm going to use Zmodeler. Josh is just buckled up watching the show now.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to switch to Zmodeler. And I'm going to say, all right, let's start messing with this. Okay, that's the front. Let's say insert multiple edge loops. Let's do something like that. I'm going to delete that, delete that, delete that. I'm going to Q mesh single polygon. Yep, that's good. We'll do that. Then we'll be symmetrical, do something like that. All right. And I'm going to insert, not that many. Let's just do a single edge loop here. And let's take now this and these. Let's pull these out. Do something like that. And let's even just do that. And then let's make this be even a little bit stronger, something like that. Good enough. Okay. I'm going to now just say, just for the sake of it, I'm going to now say, let's crease this. Okay. And I'm going to go, when I smooth this, again, I want to know what's this going to look like, right? This is not what I want it to look like, right? So this is why creasing for me becomes important. I want creased edges in certain areas. So this is more what I want it to look like. And I probably want to crease that edge probably like this. This is more or less what the shape I'm looking for. Okay. And then again, I definitely want to look at this with my preferred go-to-ness. So see, because that looks very different again. And then this is the example of where, okay, maybe I go crease level 3, and that's a little bit more. But then this is also where maybe, you know what, it'd be worth it to add another edge loop right there. Right? And so what I'm going to do now is looking at this piece from this point. So I'm looking in essence, this is the bottom, this is the top. Okay? Bottom, top. I'm going to go insert multiple edge loops and do that. Okay? And I definitely don't want that creased and I don't want that creased. And what I'm going to do is now say, okay, I want that to be a polygroup. And I want that to be a polygroup. Okay, so there's 3 polygroups there now. And now I'm going to say brush, create an insert, again, new brush, right? So now I have this. Yay, so beautiful. Okay, and what I'm going to do is tell ZBrush to put it along a curve, right? So now this is along a curve, right? And then I got to tell it, well, I want them to weld. So I'm going to do weld points, and then now it's all welded.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to our sphere now. Okay, and let's do append, cube, make it tiny, subtractive, live Boolean, okay? And now I'm drawing out, and it's drawing on the surface, right? So I want to go probably a lot smaller, something more like that, maybe even smaller. That's good enough for me. And then you can see by default, it sits on the surface, right? So I'm going to come over into my brush palette, and in my depth, I'm going to say, let's do a depth of 0, or 1's good enough. Okay, and then now when I draw out, boom,
it's in there, and you get it. So you're getting using a Boolean to create those super clean lines.
Exactly. Yeah, and I can go and do whatever I want. And if you add to this, right? If I even just take this sphere and we'll duplicate this sphere, because the sphere is my amazing model otherwise, and I don't need this many to polish. This is a little excessive. Okay, and I can say now, again, slice, right? Slice across. We don't want B radius. We don't need B radius now. So what I'm doing is this. I'm just slicing and making some polygroups. Okay, and then all you guys have to do now is with this brush selected, I go to stroke, kind of like what we do with the masking, and then by polygroups frame it. And then now when I tap, they're everywhere. Right? And then now all I have to do is do that split that I want, right? So this is where these splits come into play. Right?
Very cool.
So split on mass points, kick that into a negative, right? And then you'll have, we need to turn this sphere off, turn on so, and then there you go. We don't need that.
Awesome.
And then there you go.
That is definitely another super clean way to do this. And somebody was just commenting in the chat that I think there was a lot of really great tips and tricks and knowledge dropped in this stream, and they're going to rewatch it. I'll probably also rewatch it myself just to go over some of these tools, because this is awesome. So thank you a ton, Paul. We're actually over time right now, but thank you so much for joining today and showing off all these features. And I definitely know that I've personally, I didn't get very far on my piece, but I feel like I've got a lot of tools that I can play with and kind of figure out the way that I want to work with them now, which is great. Yeah, I think it's been awesome. So thank you a ton for how this has gone today. I really, really enjoyed it. In case you guys weren't aware as well, Paul is also a teacher at Gnomon, teaching our advanced digital sculpting class. So if you are interested in taking that class, feel free to sign up for that. This is a 3-hour-long thing we did today, so you would get 10 times the amount of information that you had just from watching the stream from taking one of our classes with Paul. So definitely, if you're interested in that, sign up. And yeah, thanks again, Paul.
Sure.
This was great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everyone took away some stuff that was nice and good for them and enjoyed it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, thank you again for joining. We will see you all next week for another art jam. Definitely we'll have to see if we can get Paul on the stream some later time when I can show him what I've done, and maybe he can give me some more tips and tricks. That would be fun. But yeah, thanks again. And I will also be on our stream this Friday doing a very quick crash course of ZBrush. So if anybody was watching the stream today saying like, oh, this is way more advanced than I'm ready for, join the Gnomon stream this Friday, and we'll be doing that. And then you guys are streaming as well this Friday, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to start a little miniature project. And then I got another artist that I'm working with that he's going to actually do the painting of the miniature after I print it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So where can they check that out?
So you just go to our stream. We have our own ZBrush Live. You can just put ZBrush Live in google.com and it'll pull up that. And we stream just like you guys are streaming. We stream to our YouTube page, our Facebook page, and we also stream to our Twitch. And then obviously the ZBrushLive.com is another place you can. So there's 4 locations you can go and watch the stream.
Perfect. All right, everybody. We'll have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Paul. It's been an awesome stream. See you all soon.
All right, thank